Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Dragon Ball, starting from adding 1 combat power per second. Chapter 31. As several people reached a consensus, each of them began to take action. Lin Chuan took Bulma to find his spaceship. Klin and Turtle Immortal returned to Turtle Immortal Island first with the help of Bobo. First of all, Turtle Immortal is going back. His strength is naturally very high among the people on Earth, and he is also an extremely respected figure. But in the final analysis, when you get older, even God will be embarrassed to tell you that you have to work hard and exercise. Counting his age, Kame Sennin is over 300 years old and can be said to be one of the oldest people on Earth. Secondly, Klin also wanted to take advantage of this time to go back and find Chi-Chi to explain the situation. After all, Wukong has gone to the underworld to train with Lord Kaio, and he won't be back until at least a year later. Gohan couldn't go back for the time being. He was afraid that once he went back, Chi-Chi would directly stop Lin Chuan from taking Gohan away, so he stayed in the Tianshan temple for the time being, just waiting for Lin Chuan's follow-up arrangements. After all, Wukong entrusted Gohan to Lin Chuan before leaving, which also explained the situation. Krillin didn't understand why Goku did this, but Goku said so, and Gohan didn't resent it, and he couldn't stop it. He was forced to do difficult things, which put him under a lot of psychological pressure. He is a thoughtful person and knows that once Chi-Chi learns such news, her husband and son will have to leave him for a year, and he will definitely not be able to accept it. More than half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. Because Bulma's aircraft was too slow, Lin Chuan still carried her all the way towards the location where the spaceship fell. Originally, Lin Chuan planned to go find the cat immortal and ask for a somersault cloud and some fairy beans. But after thinking about it, I temporarily let go of this thought. It's okay to say somersault cloud, because he has seen it before. But what about fairy beans? He has never seen it, and where did he learn about it? After all, he has just arrived on Earth not long ago, so he can only wait until he has the opportunity, or slowly intervene in the plot by himself, and then find a solution after learning about it. One of the things he had to do was to take care of the kid Oculobena. The reason why the original novel was so short of fairy beans later on was because of this fool. Lin Chuan ignored him before and didn't take him to heart at all. Now he thinks of Shondo and looks for opportunities to scare him in the future. In other words, you can get the method of growing fairy beans from the Neko Immortal. I believe that with Bulma's intelligence and methods, it is not impossible for fairy beans to be mass-produced in the future. Once you have the idea, implementation will have to wait until later. Carrying Bulma back to the dense forest where the spaceship landed. I have to say that Lin Chuan also lost some effort. His original combat power detector was given to Raditz, so he could not accurately locate it, so he could only rely on his own memory to return the same way. Simply, nothing went wrong. This is due to his more than 20 years of survival experience on planet V3114, and he is not a road fool. Otherwise, even with Bulma, an ordinary person, he couldn't fly very fast, and it would really take more than an hour or two to find him. However, Lin Chuan neglected one thing. He ignored that there were too many wild creatures in such a primitive forest. Even if you are frightened by the sound of the spaceship falling in a short period of time, it only takes half an hour to an hour. After it is confirmed that there is no danger, the creatures that originally lived in this area will become active again. Without a threat, the spacecraft becomes a toy for these animals. It seems that Lin Chuan thought that the spaceship would be useless after reaching the Earth, so he directly chose to abandon it. Who would have imagined that this spaceship should be used for Bulma's research to create a better spaceship? After driving away all kinds of wild animals, Bulma couldn't wait to get out of Lin Chuan's arms. As time passed, Bulma no longer resented being taken advantage of by Lin Chuan. After landing, she carefully observed the alien spaceship that she thought was unique. Is this a spaceship? It's so small, but it's capable of space navigation. The alien technology is incredible. As he spoke, Bulma watched while taking action. After all, the seemingly small spaceship actually condenses the essence of technology. As long as she fully understands its technology, her knowledge in the scientific field will also greatly improve. Her heart was filled with curiosity, which gave rise to motivation. She couldn't wait to dismantle the spaceship to thoroughly understand its internal structure. Seeing her so ecstatic, Lin Chuan just smiled without saying a word, walked quickly to the spaceship, and after searching inside, took out 2 spare combat power detectors. All of them are not bound to identity information, let alone activated and used. Here you go, how to use it is to press the button on the side. The intelligence system can even analyze your brain waves and give corresponding feedback. He handed a detector to Bulma, and Lin Chuan wore a getting on the other one, he said while giving Bulma a demonstration. As a genius, Bulma obviously has no resistance to this new thing. After following Lin Chuan's instigation for a while, she roughly understood the function and use of this combat power detector. However, as Lin Chuan said before, alien characters are not that easy to understand, and she cannot understand them at all. It is indeed very complicated text data, but I don't know what the internal structure is. As she said that, Bulma took out the personal master key, used the thinnest screwdriver to touch the entrance of the base, and opened the shell of the combat power detector cover. Seeing the motherboard parts and various components inside, Bulma's eyes were full of shock. I didn't expect that a small detector could be so sophisticated, so amazing. And this smart chip, don't say much. It is 10 to 20 years ahead of the Earth. However, it is easier to handle with smart chips. I have several ways to quickly modify this detector. Thankfully, I always have portable work equipment with me. As soon as Bulma finished speaking, she took off the fanny pack from her waist, took out the universal capsule box, picked out a universal capsule and opened it. After the white smoke passed, what appeared was not a room, but it was similar to a workshop, but without walls. A one-piece work area with 3 tables surrounding each other, very long and wide, with a pulley chair in the middle. Looking at the table, there were all kinds of equipment that Lin Chuan had never seen before and didn't understand what they were. Bulma didn't say much, and quickly sat on the chair and got busy, which made Lin Chuan sigh in his heart. This is the difference between geniuses and ordinary people. As a time traveler, he does know all the plots of the original work, and his knowledge is very broad, but compared with Bulma's mind, it is really going to be crushed. Lin Chuan just stood quietly watching Bulma's actions. He remained calm and didn't dare to make any sound. She was deeply afraid that it would affect her and cause her transformation to fail. Although he knew nothing about this aspect, he also knew how difficult it was. If you look at Bulma's series of operations, you will know how precise this transformation process and technique is, and there is no room for negligence. It should be noted that once there is a flaw, the combat power detector will be scrapped directly. It should be said that Bulma really has both brains and action capabilities. Under her transformation, in just 10 or 20 minutes, she has completed the final steps and restarted the combat power detector. Looking at Bulma's victorious smile, Lin Chuan knew that she must be doing more than just modifying the text message. Hey, it finally worked, Bulma shouted excitedly, and the next second she put the combat power detector on her left eye. When the combat power detector was activated again, the alien characters displayed on it had turned into Earth characters. I didn't expect you to complete the transformation so quickly. Although I expected it, but seeing it with my own eyes, it is indeed a genius. Lin Chuan started to admire. The compliment was expressed directly, and it also allowed Bulma to satisfy her vanity. Now you know, my ability is not just that, Bulma said proudly. Then an arrogant smile appeared on her face, and she said to Lin Chuan, I am not just it only transforms the text information of this detector, but also strengthens the detection capability of the detector to a certain extent, so that the combat power units it can calculate can reach a higher peak. Hearing this, Lin Chuan became interested and asked, are you saying that you have strengthened the upper limit of the detector? Then what is the highest index that it can detect now? Although it is a semi-finished product that has been added together, if the detector could barely detect a value of about 20,000 at the beginning, then it should be able to reach about 40,000 to 50,000 now. I added the chip I developed myself. Although it is not as good as the main chip of the detector, it can play a role in assisting calculations. After Bulma thought for a while, she answered. It can be seen that even though the Earth's smart chips in the past could not compare with alien high-tech chips, they were still developing rapidly, especially under Bulma's production, which was already quite terrifying. Speaking of which, in fact, the technology in some fields on Earth is so advanced that even the technology of Frieza's Legion cannot match it. For example, Dr. Gro's artificial human technology, as well as top-notch biotechnology, etc. 40,000 to 50,000. You can catch up with the advanced combat power detector recently developed by Frieza Corps. Lin Chuan muttered. The combat power detectors they hold are old models that have been in use for decades. The guy Lin Chuan plundered was just a high-level reconnaissance warrior, so the combat power detector was also an ordinary model, and the detection limit was only about 20,000 combat power. According to Lin Chuan's understanding and the information provided by the original work, at this stage, only senior personnel of Frieza's army will be equipped with new advanced combat power detectors. The range of combat power that can be detected can reach more than 50,000 points to 100,000 points. Just like Sabo in the original work is equipped with a new type of combat power detector, the combat power detectors of the Ginyu Special Forces that appeared later are also high level. Calculating this time, the advanced combat power detector may still be in the development stage. Even if it is developed, it should only be in the trial stage. Therefore, in the plot a year later, most of the soldiers in Frieza's army are still equipped with detectors with a maximum combat power of no more than 20,000 to 30,000. After listening to Lin Chuan's words, Bulma finally understood that this kind of detector also has high and low levels. But she felt proud when she thought that she had reached an advanced level through casual modification. At that moment, another idea flashed through her mind. Out of curiosity, she pressed the button of the detector directly towards Lin Chuan. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, single quote. As the combat power detector made a detection sound, Lin Chuan was slightly startled and unprepared. Bulma saw a piece of data that shocked her. The combat power value is 100 points. That's not right, did it fail? Your combat power is only 100 points. Bulma pressed the button of the combat power detector again in disbelief, confused for a while. Things like making mistakes should not exist in her dictionary. If it fails, it stands to reason that it will not even start. Hearing this, Lin Chuan reacted, knowing that Bulma wanted to know his fighting ability, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but tremble. Her transformation of the detector did not fail. She controlled her own combat power to be a unit with 100 points, so the detector could only detect 100 points. The reason for doing this is that my chi cultivation has already reached a certain level, so I can control it as I wish. Secondly, the combat power is increasing every second. If you always show your strongest posture in front of others regardless of everything, then shouldn't your momentum be soaring every moment? Who can bear it? Your transformation did not fail, it's just that I hid my own aura and the combat power detector couldn't detect it. If you want to see my combat power, you should have said it earlier. If you want to see it, then I will let you see it. By the way, I will also test the level of your modified combat power detector. With a slight smile, Lin Chuan responded to Bulma and directly mobilized the power in his body in the next second. As his energy was released and his momentum soared, the combat power detector Bulma was wearing began to scan and calculate rapidly. Combat power 1000, combat power 5000, combat power 10,000, combat power 20,000, still rising. Okay, so awesome. Frightened by the numbers on the lenses, Bulma turned pale. With the help of research on combat power detectors, she knew that the numbers set for combat power were not random. Each numerical level has a certain definition. For example, with a combat power of 1000 points, a small satellite such as the moon can be easily destroyed. The combat power starts from a few thousand points and reaches about 10,000 points, which can probably destroy a planet as big as the Earth. With a combat power of more than 20,000 points, although it still belongs to the destruction star by definition, Bulma can no longer imagine it. Lin Chuan's combat effectiveness is still improving. It's just that the numbers Bulma saw were no longer soaring as before, but increasing gradually. While Lin Chuan was showing off his strength to test the results of Bulma's transformation, he was also taking this opportunity to feel how strong he was now. Since arriving under the Kalen Tower more than 2 hours ago, his combat power has reached 21,675 points. With the increase of combat power plus 1 per second, his combat power at this time has reached as high as 30,375 points. A total of 8,700 points of combat power were increased. Calculating the specific time, 145 minutes have passed. Lin Chuan only had a clear feeling when Bulma modified the detector just now when the combat power exceeded 30,000. Add 1 every second, step by step, small increments or nothing, it will become natural after you get used to it. But a big span is a different feeling. This is my current strength. Although it is not completely explosive, I can easily defeat the 10 previous me. Even if a real battle does not break out, Lin Chuan can be sure of his own strength level at this time. The strength is getting stronger and the body is transforming. For a moment, there was only joy in my heart. Just every time you pass the note of 10,000 combat power, the strength gap can become so big. I can't imagine how strong a 100,000 combat power can be. How terrifying is 1,000,000 combat power? Only when your own strength has truly reached this point can you truly understand. Your combat power has exceeded 30,000 points, and it is still rising. Wait, why has it dropped again? Bulma's voice continued to sound. Until the detector's data dropped again, she suddenly felt that there was something wrong with her transformation. It wasn't until Lin Chuan answered the question that Bulma realized that it was him who had taken the initiative to put away the power that could destroy the planet. It's hard to imagine how you cultivated such a powerful power. Goku has been practicing since he was a child, but his combat power seems to be only a few hundred points, and his eldest brother only has 1,500 points. Bulma, her words were enough to express her incredible shock. In fact, her ability to accept is quite strong. Anyone else would have been frightened to death. Of course, the reason why Bulma is not afraid is because Lin Chuan is a friend to her. He's not an enemy, and he won't do anything to the earth, so what does she have to be afraid of? It won't take long for their strength to improve by leaps and bounds. Okay, now is not the time to think about this. Why don't you sort it out? Let's go to that Guaxian island to give them the combat power detector. Lin Chuan said perfunctorily. Now that the combat effectiveness detector has been transformed, there is no need to continue to waste time here. As for spaceships, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Yes. Hearing this, Bulma nodded. He immediately started to take action and put the portable workbench back into the capsule, and then took out another capsule from the capsule box. More than an hour passed quickly. Guaxian Island at this time. Turtle Immortal and Klin had already returned to Turtle Immortal Island under the escort of Bobo, and they were all waiting for Lin Chuan and Bulma to arrive here. Time passed little by little. People who are originally calm and don't think too much will often have random thoughts due to instability, causing great psychological pressure. Especially Krillin, this is clearly reflected in him. Sentimentality and excessive worry are also Krillin's character. In contrast, Kame Sennin remained extremely relaxed. After returning to Guaxian Island, he lay on his sun lounger, enjoying the sea breeze and reading the beauty magazines he never got tired of. Where's Bobo? He behaved similarly to Kame Sennin, even calmer than Kame Sennin. As a godly servant who has lived for more than 1,000 years, there is no doubt that he is the real hidden boss on Earth. It's been so long and you haven't come yet. Could it be that there was an accident? Klin stood on the beach looking into the distance in a dull mood. This look, not to mention how depressing it is. After all, he was miserable, and he had to take care of all the funeral affairs. Don't be nervous, let alone be anxious. Klin, you have to keep a normal mind. Instead of worrying so much, you should think about how to face the guidance of the gods in the future and how to become stronger. Kame Sennin's eyes flashed. Wong looked at Klin and said something to him. Hearing this, Klin could only smile bitterly and immediately replied, "Yes, master." He agreed, but how could his heart calm down so easily? At this point, he will not be able to fully control his heart until he truly realizes the realm of selflessness in the future super era. I don't know what the Saiyan named Lin Chuan's plan is. After collecting the Dragon Balls, what will he wish for? If he wanted to rule the entire Earth, he wouldn't need the Dragon Balls at all, he could do it alone. Besides immortal life, what else does he need? Klin kept speculating in his mind about Lin Chuan's desire to use the Dragon Balls. But there was no way he could have guessed. The conjectures made were all based on the fact that Lin Chuan would persecute them and possibly destroy the Earth. It can only be said that on the one hand, the gap in strength is too big, and the other party is simply not something they can understand. On the one hand, Raditz's arrival was too much of a deterrent, and it was also their first time contacting aliens. While he was thinking, a black spot suddenly appeared in the sky that Klin was looking at, which made his nerves jump. "They're coming. That's Bulma's jet," Krillin shouted. After a while, on the distant sea level, a black spot was continuously enlarged, and finally turned into the shape of a jet. Just not as a flying machine to begin with, but as a large jet. When the real owner arrived, Kame Sennin changed his previous state, put down the magazine in his hand and stood up, and Bobo also came closer. And the turtle, he's always at home. Even though he knew the cause and effect, he was still afraid of having to face a strange and powerful Saiyan again. Inside the jet, Lin Chuan sat in the passenger seat, folding his hands on his chest and looking straight ahead. At this time, his combat effectiveness increased from 30,375 points to 34,695 points. The voyage lasted for more than an hour. If his combat power hadn't been improving every second, he really wouldn't have been so patient. I had no choice but to leave the spaceship alone. As a result, Bulma insisted on transporting it away, fearing that it would be damaged if it was kept there. This was like treating the spaceship as her property, which left Lin Chuan speechless. Along the way, Lin Chuan didn't say anything, just listened to Bulma talking non-stop. Here we are. Under Bulma's reminder, Lin Chuan also saw the lonely island in the sea. With Lin Chuan's sight, he could see clearly even if they were still some distance apart. This is Guaxian Island. After Bulma docked the large jet on Guaxian Island, Lin Chuan also came out of the jet. Unlike Bulma, coming to Turtle Immortal Island for the first time still brought back a lot of memories for Lin Chuan. These memories are naturally memories of past lives. To use a saying on the internet, in the previous life, that is, Turtle Immortal Island is where the main plot of Dragon Ball really begins. If he had just traveled through time and came here, Lin Chuan would be really excited, because if he came here when he was weak, it would mean that he had one more opportunity to become stronger. But now that I have arrived here, everything has changed. The only thing that remains unchanged is the understanding of Guaxian Island, which is an isolated paradise. To be honest, Lin Chuan would also really like to live a life that is comfortable and free from worldly interference. Especially after so many years of hardship. But coming to a world where the jungle prevails, becoming a Saiyan, and activating the unlimited combat power enhancement system, it is impossible for him to live such a life in this life, at least for now. Wandering around Guaxian Island alone is also a good way to experience the wonderful feelings brought here. Anyway, where was such a place on the Doomsday Planet before? After a long time, Lin Chuan came back to his senses and returned to the beach in front of the main house. At this time, Bulma has obviously explained everything and is teaching Krillin how to use the combat power detector. Don't they feel uncomfortable wearing this thing in front of their eyes? It affects their vision very much. Klin put on the detector and couldn't help complaining, which was considered a complaint. As he turned the button under Bulma's guidance, the combat power detector responded immediately. The first time, it was naturally detected that Bobo's combat power was as high as 1030 points, followed by his master Kame Sennin, whose combat power was 139 points. He had learned earlier that his combat power value exceeded 200 points. This time, Klin became excited because he had surpassed his master. In this era, in Klin's heart, surpassing his master is such a fulfilling thing. Yes, after all, Turtle Immortal's status is too high. It seems that you already know how to use it. The next step is to learn to use brain waves to perform some basic uses of the detector. Of course, to find the location of people with high combat power, you can also use long press to operate, or you can use language to control it. It only took Bulma a short time to fully understand the detector, and even added her own modification function. I know, let me try it first, Klin said as he spoke. The next second, he began to press and hold the button of the detector to trigger the function of finding powerful combat power. Dee single quote. The combat power detector keeps making sounds. Less than 10 or 20 seconds later, a force with a combat power of about 250 points was detected about 3,000 kilometers away in the southwest, and next to this combat power, there was another force with a combat power of 150 points. One person's combat power is 250 points, and another person's combat power is 150 points. If I'm right, it should be Tianjin rice and dumplings. Apart from the two of them, there should be no one else on Earth who can have this value. Clindy, I immediately thought of Tianjin rice and dumplings. As for the possibility of Yamcha, it is almost zero. Yamcha's strength has been slightly inferior to him since a few years ago, and from Bulma's mouth, I know that Yamcha has been living and drinking in these years. By the way, he has been practicing, so there is no way Yamcha can surpass his 206 combat power points. Now that we know the specific location, let's set off quickly. Master Tianshan is still waiting for us to return in Tianshan Temple. Bobo took the initiative to step forward. This is urging, and I don't want to waste more time. As a divine servant, he cannot leave the Celestial Temple for too long. Now that the combat power detector is in hand, after finding Tianjin rice and dumplings, it should be very simple to find Yamuti. Klin hesitated for a moment, because he was still worried about Lin Chuan and Bulma. But after getting a nod from the Turtle Immortal, he couldn't think of anything else and could only step on Bobo's flying magic carpet. The two of them left Turtle Immortal Island just like that. From beginning to end, Lin Chuan didn't say a word. After they left, Lin Chuan stepped forward to have a simple conversation with Bulma. Of course, I did not forget to say hello to Turtle Immortal and nodded. This martial arts master is a real martial arts master, otherwise he would not perform so well in the future power conference. Therefore, he deserves Lin Chuan's respect. In the blink of an eye, 5 hours passed. After sending Krillin and Bobo away, Lin Chuan and Bulma completed their discussions and started looking for the Dragon Balls with the help of the Dragon Ball radar. In this seemingly long but short period of time, they collected 5 Dragon Balls. Counting the 4-star Dragon Ball that was taken off Sun Wuhan's hat at the beginning, 6 Dragon Balls had already fallen into their hands. Now there is only one last stone left to summon the dragon to make a wish. The location of this last Dragon Ball has also been marked on the Dragon Ball radar. It is located in the coldest zone on Earth, the far north. As the far north, the temperature remains below -30 degrees Celsius all year round. In order to go there, Bulma specially prepared several sets of antifreeze suits to deal with the harsh environment. However, Lin Chuan did not ask for the antifreeze suit Bulma prepared for him. To him, this harsh climate was nothing. The doomsday planet he once lived on, in terms of ecological environment and climate changes, was much worse than the low temperatures in the far north. Both Baidu and Lin Chuan have experienced sub-zero temperatures. All the way north along the Dragon Ball radar, Lin Chuan not only used his own energy to maintain his own body temperature, but also created a protective circle so that Bulma in his arms would not feel uncomfortable. After a while, a strange iceberg nearly 1,000 meters high came into view of the two people. That's it. According to the location on the Dragon Ball radar, the last Dragon Ball is inside this iceberg. If you want to get the Dragon Ball, it seems you have to break this iceberg. After Bulma determined the location of the Dragon Ball, she pointed forward and said to Lin Chuan, "I know, small problem." Looking at the majestic and towering iceberg in front of him, Lin Chuan did not hesitate and raised his hand to condense a golden energy ball the size of a table tennis ball. The energy ball escaped from his palm and crashed into the iceberg. Boom. Single quote. The impact of the explosion was extremely frightening, and the flames shot straight into the sky, immediately causing an ice and snow storm. Under the powerful blast of Lin Chuan's energy bomb, the entire iceberg was shattered. The storm is like a wild beast awakening, capable of swallowing up everything. Of course it will not have any impact on Lin Chuan. The strength is there. What does this aftermath mean? Bulma will be fine, because Lin Chuan holds her and keeps the energy shield open, so she will never be harmed. Hey. What you did is a little too much. I just let you explode, I didn't let you blow up the entire iceberg directly. What if all the Dragon Balls are blown up? The entire iceberg disappeared without a trace. Although Bulma was shocked, her first thought was whether the Dragon Balls would be destroyed directly by this wave of explosions. As a strong woman, After spending time with Lin Chuan, she became more and more bold and dared to say anything. If you want to start searching for the entire iceberg, you will have to search for an unknown amount of time. You have also said it yourself. The accuracy of the Dragon Pearl radar has an error of nearly 50 meters. Instead of searching slowly, it is better to just blow it up. As for destroying the Dragon Ball, it will naturally not happen. The level of bombing just now, with the strength of the Earth Dragon Ball, will not be broken. After finishing speaking, Lin Chuan continued to stare at the Dragon Ball radar in Bulma's hand. Although the marked position above has changed, the 7th Dragon Ball has indeed not been destroyed. Because of the explosion, he was swept away to the ice field ahead. There, before Bulma could refute, Lin Chuan flew forward with luck. After a few kilometers, Lin Chuan fell to the ground holding Bulma. In the vast white ice field, there is nothing but ice and snow. There is no living thing or anything else. If there was one, it would be that the debris from the iceberg explosion just now was scattered in every corner of the plain. Putting down Bulma, Lin Chuan took the Dragon Ball radar from Bulma's hand. Don't move around here for now. There may be a fault under the snow. If you fall, it will be life-threatening. Lin Chuan warned Bulma, then let go of his senses and started walking to search. Bulma stood where she was, not daring to run around. Although she is brave, she also cherishes her life. It wasn't until several minutes passed that Lin Chuan squinted his lips and took out the 7-star Dragon Ball that glowed orange-yellow from a hole in the ice and snow. Finally, we got it together. It took more than 5 hours to find the Dragon Ball scattered around the world. Looking back, Lin Chuan looked at Bulma and showed the 7-star Dragon Ball in his hand. Seeing that the last Dragon Ball had been found, Bulma was also very happy. For a moment, she forgot Lin Chuan's instructions and trotted away. Bulma, who was originally in a happy mood, thinking that she could finally leave this hellish place, suddenly lost her feet, and for a moment, her whole mind stopped, causing her to fall into death despair. Seeing this situation, Lin Chuan didn't know what was going on. I cursed secretly in my heart, stupid woman. The next second he was furious, and in less than a second, he directly grabbed Bulma's body that was about to fall into the ice cave, and used the air dance technique to get off the ground. Fortunately, the distance is short. Didn't I tell you not to move? Lin Chuan adjusted his posture and hugged Princess Bulma again, and Lin Chuan made an accusing voice. If he didn't react to this, something would really happen to Bulma. I didn't think that if I found this Dragon Ball, I could leave here. Bulma pouted with a look of resentment on her face. Lang Budding experienced a death wandering, which made her even colder. She shrank subconsciously, and Lin Chuan felt something. After shaking his head helplessly, he luckily formed a protective shield again, and then left the far north. Northern Plains. At the edge of a forest where the vegetation was still lush, Lin Chuan dropped from the sky with Bulma. Once here, it's no longer cold. The temperature has risen to about 15 degrees above zero. Although it is still not warm, compared with the -40 or 50 degrees in the far north, this place is simply paradise. Are you sure you want to summon the dragon here to make a wish? Bulma said as she took off her heavy antifreeze suit. Of course, if you hadn't been unable to bear the cold, you would have made a wish over there before. Lin Chuan said. After hearing this, Bulma rolled her eyes, and then took out the Dragon Ball from the space bag. The 7 round Dragon Balls gathered together and resonated in the dark, emitting flashes of dazzling golden light. Then let's get started. Come out, Shenron, Bulma shouted. Wang, single quote. The 7 Dragon Balls suddenly bloomed with extremely brilliant light. At the same time, the sky was shrouded in a layer of billowing black fog, which extended to the entire Earth's sky. In just a short time, the whole world was plunged into darkness. The sky above the Earth was shrouded in darkness. This scene immediately attracted the attention of the Z warriors. The light was shrouded in darkness, and in the next second a golden beam of light shot out from the 7 Dragon Balls, shooting straight into the sky. The dazzling light gathered into the body of the dragon, suspended in midair, full of majesty and domineering aura. The dragon of the earth was suspended above Lin Chuan's head. The sense of oppression that radiates invisibly is real. This is not the suppression caused by strong strength, but the pressure brought by the simple dragon itself. It's not an exaggeration to call it Longwei for short. Those who have collected the 7 Dragon Balls, tell them your wish. No matter what your wish is, this dragon can help you realize it. A familiar opening, a familiar taste. For a brief moment, Lin Chuan recalled the scene when he watched the dragon appear on the big screen. It's a pity that he looks so majestic and domineering, but his tone is also so loud. In fact, the dragon on Earth now is little Kurami. Compared with the divine dragon Bulma on Namek, it's not even a bit worse. Only in the future, Shenlong, who will be transformed and upgraded by Dandy, will be able to realize his wishes from 1 to 3, and he will rise a few points. Of course, it was still not as good as Bulma at that time. I remember that in the Super Era, in front of the god of destruction Beerus, the Earth Dragon was almost scared to death. Okay Lin Chuan, the dragon has been summoned. Now you can tell your wish. Bulma fixed her eyes on Lin Chuan and reminded him loudly. After hearing Bulma's words, Lin Chuan's lips twitched and he showed a wicked smile. I have an idea, I don't know if it can be realized. Bulma looked at Lin Chuan with a smirk on his face and felt something was wrong. Are you the wish maker? Tell me your wish. No matter what wish you make, this dragon can make it come true. Shenlong seemed to have heard Lin Chuan's suspicion, and his rich voice had an invisible impact on people. It seemed that it is saying, there is no wish that this dragon cannot fulfill. Are you sure that any wish can really come true? What if it can't come true? Lin Chuan narrowed his eyes slightly. Argue with Shenlong and see if you can gain anything. Of course, it doesn't matter if you can't catch it. Hearing such doubts, Shenlong immediately became unhappy. As long as it does not violate the rules set by the creator that wishes cannot be realized repeatedly, any wish is fine. It seems that you are very confident, so my wish is to give me 3 more wishes. As Lin Chuan expressed his wish loudly, the next second, not only Shenron, but also Bulma on the side was dumbfounded. There were a lot of question marks in their minds. What the hell, can you still make a wish like this? What do you think he is? As a divine dragon, he knew everything and was omnipotent. However, at this moment, he was out of his mind. The wish was made, but he really couldn't realize this outrageous wish. At this moment, he recalled the Heiko he had boasted about before, and fell silent for a moment. From the day he was born until today, he has never seen such a shameless person. Where's Bulma? At this time, Shenlong didn't answer, and there was an expectant look on his face. If this is really possible, then all their previous summoning of dragons to make wishes was wasted. She has made wishes so many times, and after so many years, she is a genius after all, so why didn't she think of this loophole? After being silent for a long time, Shenlong sighed and replied, I'm really sorry, this wish cannot be realized by me. It was indeed Benlong who boasted about Heiko just now. As the answer came out, Bulma on the side couldn't suppress the disappointment on her face. Lin Chuan guessed it. If this is really possible, it would be outrageous. It seems that Shenlong is not omnipotent. Can you tell me the reason? Of course, this reason is not the wish I want to make. Lin Chuan continued to joke with a smile on his face. After all, if you can't realize your wish, then it will be inevitable give precise reasons why your wishes cannot be fulfilled. Hearing this, Shenlong looked serious. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have been tricked, but he had no choice but to say, this dragon can fulfill a wish, which is based on the original rules. If you want to turn a wish into if you want more wishes, you must break the rules and create new ones. This, Benlong, can't be done. After the words fell, Shenlong changed the topic. Greedy humans, can't you satisfy one wish? You must know that the cycle of cause and effect, excessive greed, will eventually lead you to a dead end. Really, I wonder if any of your wishes can come true. Is that why I made the wish? Why are you saying I'm greedy now? Lin Chuan was not polite. Is this dragon trying to save face for himself? Lin Chuan didn't buy his fault, nor would he let him gain a sense of presence on him. The atmosphere gradually became awkward, and Lin Chuan and Shenlong were also in a stalemate. Well, Lin Chuan, you'd better make a wish quickly. Although Shenlong is omnipotent, your wish just now was indeed a bit outrageous. If we continue to waste time and make Shenlong angry away, we will lose more than we gain. Bulma stood up to resolve the awkward situation. I was just joking casually. Since I can't realize my previous wish, then give me the ability to teleport to and from any planet at will. Lin Chuan said. As soon as these words came out, Bulma looked at Lin Chuan again with surprise. Is this ability achievable? At least it's more reasonable than the previous one. Both of them waited for Shenlong's answer. After a moment, Shenlong spoke again in frustration. This kind of ability is beyond the scope of this dragon's intervention. Please, make another wish. Shenlong's answer once again surprised Bulma and left Lin Chuan speechless. If the previous wish was a joke, then this time, it is not too outrageous. I didn't expect that Earth's dragons were so weak. I said, why can't it be achieved this time? Bulma asked. His wish has already involved the realm of gods. Please forgive me for not being able to answer. 2 consecutive defeats made Shenlong lose face and wanted to run away. He was deeply afraid that if it happened again, then he would no longer be an omnipotent dragon, and he would not need to make any wish come true in the future. The realm of gods. In other words, Shenlong, you actually have many wishes that cannot be realized. Bulma opened up a new worldview and asked. To this, Shenlong did not answer, because this was not a wish, so he did not need to answer. He continued to stare at Lin Chuan and urged, okay, tell me your other wishes. If you haven't thought about it yet, I will leave. Before my wish came true, I thought about leaving. This is not taking other people's hard work of finding the Dragon Ball seriously. Where is Lin Chuan? There was dissatisfaction in his eyes at this time, but he didn't show it. To be honest, his wish just now was to obtain the ability of Kaioshin to move instantaneously. Even if it doesn't work, it should be able to be transformed into the teleportation of the Adtra people. However, Shenron didn't mention it at all, so it's certain that Earth Shenron's ability is indeed very impressive. Otherwise, there will definitely be more explanations than just one sentence that involves God's realm and he cannot achieve it. If even this wish cannot be realized, then what other wishes does he have to fulfill? Make a wish and go directly to planet Namek. Make a wish with Palunga, the dragon on Namek. As soon as this idea was born, Lin Chuan killed it. It would be a real loss to use this wish to go directly to Namek. Not to mention whether the Earth Dragon can achieve it. You know, as long as the spaceship is repaired, he can go to planet Namek. Moreover, if Bulma builds a new type of spaceship in the future, it will only take 6 days to go to planet Namek. Therefore, why waste this wish when you can use other methods? Don't you have any wishes? Seeing Lin Chuan's silence, Shenlong repeatedly confirmed. Just when Shenlong was about to say goodbye and leave, Lin Chuan suddenly raised his head and said, my wish is to give me the ability to survive in all harsh environments, such as surviving in space. It's okay if you can't realize the first 2 wishes, but you should be able to fulfill this wish, right? Lin Chuan said it righteously and sternly. This time, Shenlong gave a direct answer. As you wish, I will give you the ability to survive in any environment, especially the ability to survive in the universe. As Shenlong spoke, a penetrating light flashed in his bright red eyes. A majestic special force is released with Shenlong as the center. With the end of the wish, Lin Chuan gained the ability to survive in any harsh environment. Of course, the most important thing is the ability to survive in the universe. In order to ensure that his wish would come true, Lin Chuan also conducted an experiment and went directly into the universe to see if he would be threatened by death. I have to say that the buff that Shenlong's willpower has on his body is quite incredible. Being in the universe is no different from being on Earth. In the past, Lin Chuan could use his own power to stay in the universe for a short time, but that was extremely energy-consuming. This kind of survival now seems like something he was born with. Standing in the void, Lin Chuan looked down at the earth. At this moment, there is another feeling. In the past, he was powerful enough, but he could not truly escape the shackles of a planet. Now he can ignore the constraints of the past, so his state of mind has become different. That's almost it. Next, we have to take Bulma to the Celestial Temple. According to the direction of the aura, they are also approaching the Temple of Heaven. Talking to himself, Lin Chuan's figure dropped rapidly, breaking through the atmosphere and entering the interior of the earth. Naturally, the purpose of going to the Temple of Heaven was to take away Sun Wuhan. After all, Sun Wukong entrusted his son to him. No matter what he said, he had to show off and then send it to Piccolo for instruction. Time Time passed in the blink of an eye for almost half an hour. Temple of Heaven. At this moment, except for Sun Wukong, all the Z warriors of the current era are here. Before finding Tianjin rice, dumplings and Yamu tea, Clin had already explained to them what happened today in detail. To them, this sounds like fantasy. Not only was Sun Wukong, the strongest among their group, defeated, but the once invincible demon King Piccolo, who almost ruled the world, was also defeated. What does that mean? Isn't this to say that the cultivation of these people over the years is nothing to aliens? The world view has been opened, and it is certain that you will not give in. The most important thing is that in a year's time, the Earth will usher in an even more powerful Saiyan invasion. They must maximize their own strength within a year. Otherwise, they will become ants that the intruders will kill at will. Unexpectedly, Goku turned out to be an alien, a fighting race Saiyan. No wonder he is so powerful. 1 year, only 1 year to become stronger. Although I can't go to the King of Kai to practice like you, I won't admit defeat. When we meet again in a year, I will definitely impress you, Wukong. Tianjin Fan sighed in his heart. He actually didn't know that he was not from Earth, but from Three Eyes Star. As a martial artist on Earth second only to Sun Wukong and Piccolo, his strength has always been among the best. If it weren't for the lack of opportunities, and if his vision hadn't been constrained in his early years, his strength would never be lower than that of Sun Wukong and Piccolo. After reverie, Tianjin Fan's eyes turned slightly and fell on Sun Wuhan, who was waiting obediently next to Tianjin not far away. Is he Wukong's son? In just 5 years, he has grown so old. Tianjin Fan asked subconsciously. Involuntarily thinking about himself, Tianjin Fan suddenly had a strange idea. He actually has a chance, because Lan Qi has been pursuing him by his side. It's just that he ignored her existence for the sake of martial arts training. Well, he is Goku's son. His name is Sun Wuhan. He is 4 years old this year. Speaking of which, there is one thing I haven't told you yet, that is, for some reason, Goku entrusted Gohan to the Saiyan named Lin Chuan before leaving. Clin nodded and spoke, taking this opportunity to express his biggest worry. Son Gohan was entrusted to Lin Chuan, a Saiyan who had just arrived on Earth and was almost unknown to him. This is so ridiculous. That guy Goku still trusts others so easily. This Saiyan named Lin Chuan, God knows whether he is a good guy or a bad guy. Yamcha couldn't help but criticize. Logically speaking, even if it is entrusted, it should be left to them. Is it really okay to leave it to a stranger you just met? In short, Yamcha doesn't believe it. The Earth had been peaceful for so many years, but suddenly it was in chaos due to the arrival of the Saiyans. What's the point of being invaded by Saiyans a year later and leaving Gohan in the hands of another Saiyan? This matter does need to be discussed carefully. While several people were discussing, under the Temple of Heaven, a figure quickly leapt up and landed on the platform square of the Temple of Heaven. The speed was so fast that even the 4Z warriors present with their superior perception could not catch it immediately. The visitors were undoubtedly Lin Chuan, who had already made a wish and returned, and of course Bulma. We're here, come down, Lin Chuan said as he slowly put Bulma down in his arms. Bulma muttered angrily as her heels landed. I said, can you please consider my feelings anyway? Next time you fly, go slower. I'm just an ordinary person. I can't bear it at all. Not as fast as you. Bulma complained repeatedly. She was still thinking about next time, but she didn't realize that she and Lin Chuan had just met today. Because of various coincidences and the search for the Dragon Ball, Lin Chuan would always hold her in his arms. This scene looks like a flirtation between lovers. For a moment, the picture happened to be seen by Yamcha, who was not far away. At this moment, Yamcha was completely stunned, as if something was broken in his heart, making him breathless and extremely difficult. Bulma, you. Why are you with him? What's going on? Why is this guy hugging you? Yamcha's eyes were already red. He was so angry that he could not speak clearly, his face was ferocious, and he was full of hostility towards Lin Chuan. Bulma was the woman he had always identified with, and he would never allow any man to get involved with her. Not even if you were a companion. However, now something like this happened. In his opinion, only he can hold his girlfriend. Even his boyfriend only went as far as hugging. Now an outsider, a stranger, had taken advantage of him, making him feel that his life had been in vain all these years. Yamcha was completely unaware at this time that it had been a long time since he and Bulma broke up. Just because he joined the baseball team and flirted with women, either watching movies with other women or having dinner with other women, Bulma directly blacklisted him. Ya, Yamcha. And Tianjin rice and dumplings. Bulma heard Yamcha's question and turned around to look. When she noticed Yamcha's angry look, she couldn't help but feel a sense of revenge in her heart. In the past, she was the only one who was jealous, and she was the only one who was betrayed by Yamcha. Now Yamcha's performance is undoubtedly urgent. The corners of her mouth raised, and a good idea came into Bulma's mind. What she wants is for Yamcha to have the feeling of losing her. It's been so long, and it's obviously his fault, but he won't take the initiative to come to her to admit his mistake. Although she had spoken too much at that time, the incident was caused by Yamcha. If he had refused the approach of those coquettish things, they would not have reached the point where they are today. After being separated for so long, Bulma had forgotten the last time she talked to and met Yamcha. At this time, she just wanted to make Yamcha regret and let him know that her tolerance had limits. What does it have to do with you? The two of us have nothing to do with each other anymore. I can let anyone hug me if I am willing to do so. You have nothing to do with it. As he spoke, Bulma took the initiative to hold Lin Chuan's arm like a provocateur. The conspiratorial smile on his face gave Lin Chuan a headache. Although he didn't mind Bulma dragging him like this, he was caught off guard when she used him as a demonstration. Lin Chuan didn't feel comfortable knowing that Bulma was deliberately trying to piss off Yamcha. At this time, it is true that the relationship between Bulma and Yamcha has not been truly characterized as unrelated. Just as he was about to say something, Lin Chuan saw Bulma's gaze again. Although there was no verbal communication, Lin Chuan knew that Bulma was begging him for help and asking him to act in a play with her. This woman really doesn't take things too seriously. If that's the case, I won't be polite. Lin Chuan was not the kind of person who would be manipulated by others. Anyway, Bulma has already been recognized by him, so he doesn't need to hesitate. On the contrary, Bulma took the initiative to approach and use him as a shield, which was a good thing for him. It should be noted that if a woman uses you as an excuse when facing another man, then she will have more chances of falling for you than anyone else. To put it simply, what kind of play do you want to play? It's better to just do it for real. Lin Chuan pulled Bulma into his arms and hugged her waist even more. This intimate movement makes the two people's bodies close together at another angle, which is particularly eye-catching. Bulma was shocked by Lin Chuan's sudden move. But she didn't dare to move, because once she got disgusted, she wouldn't be able to perform the play well. She glanced at Lin Chuan and Bulma's cheeks turned red when she saw Lin Chuan's evil smile. She could feel those salty hands kneading her. What's the meaning? Treat her as a random woman. You. When Yamcha saw this scene, his eyes widened. There was unspeakable pain in his heart, and he was so angry that he couldn't control it. If looks could kill, Lin Chuan would have been tortured to death thousands of times. My own woman was tainted by another man. And Bulma didn't resist, instead she looked like she was ready to be picked by anyone. He and Bulma have been in a relationship for 10 years, and he has taken the initiative, but he has never seen Bulma act like this. Were you showing murderous intent towards me just now? Lin Chuan narrowed his eyes slightly, and in just a moment, an extremely terrifying power erupted from his body. An invisible aura formed in an instant, enveloping the entire celestial temple like a king looming over the world. This, just a casual thought from Lin Chuan, was enough to make Yamcha, Tianjin Fan, Klin and Dumplings present unable to move. Naturally, this also includes the gods Piccolo, Bobo, and Akilo. If Lin Chuan used all his strength to unleash his pressure, I'm afraid they would be knocked unconscious by him. From the time he searched for the Dragon Balls until now, nearly 6 hours and a total of 20,700 seconds, his combat power has already exceeded 50,000 points, reaching 55,395 points. This kind of strength, placed on the earth at this time, no one can withstand it. Because of Lin Chuan's intimidation, Yamcha suddenly became silent. He knew how terrifying this unknown Saiyan Lin Chuan was, and the cowardly character in his heart was revealed. Well, Yamcha doesn't mean that. The relationship is between boyfriend and girlfriend. So, when I saw you holding Bulma, I just wanted to know what was going on. Krillin wanted to make peace, but he was also overwhelmed by Lin Chuan's momentum. He divided his sentence into several paragraphs before finishing. Lin Chuan laughed directly after hearing this. I don't care what happened in the past, I only know the present. Do you think I felt wrong about the murderous intention just now? Boy Klin. And you, an earthling named Yamcha. Although I don't know the inside story, I'm not stupid. Now that Bulma has said it has nothing to do with you, what qualifications do you have to accuse others? Or, how great do you think you are? After replying to Klin, Lin Chuan spoke to Yamuti ceremony in a domineering tone. Klin didn't dare to speak anymore, while Yamcha secretly clenched his fists with mixed feelings in his heart. He gritted his teeth, his resentful eyes constantly shifting back and forth between Lin Chuan and Bulma. Knowing that he hated him in his heart, but he didn't even dare to answer the question, Lin Chuan smiled disdainfully. He continued to hold Bulma in his arms, regardless of her struggling, and said again, as a man, if you really cared about this woman, you wouldn't even dare to fart under the intimidation of my words. To be honest, you are not worthy of Bulma. After that, Lin Chuan amplified the pressure and brought even greater oppression to Yamcha. Originally, the group of people could barely resist, but now they were completely suppressed. As this, the power of Saiyans. Tianjin Fan doesn't care about anything else, he only cares about his own feelings. At this time, he gritted his teeth and tried his best to resist the pressure released by Lin Chuan. The gap was so big that even if he exploded with power beyond his limit and raised his combat power to 400 or 500 points for a short period of time, it would still be useless. No wonder, Lord Celestial God is so anxious to summon us to practice in the Celestial Temple. Are all the Saiyans who will come a year later at his level? Are you kidding me? A person's anger can actually reach this level. Tianjin fans fully realize how insignificant they are. Tianjin. Dumpling stood beside Tianjin Fan. He was so frightened that he could only rely on Tianjin Fan to give him a sense of security. The effect was achieved, and Lin Chuan took back his own breath. Instead, he didn't even look at Yamcha. His attention was focused on the Tianjin rice and dumplings, but the Tianjin rice was indeed worthy of his admiration. Under his pressure, he still maintained his original intention. I didn't expect that not only do we Saiyans and Namekians exist on Earth, but there are also tri-eyed people. With a frown on his lips, Lin Chuan said with a smile. Three-eyed star. In the original work, even Tianjin Fan himself didn't know this, right? Tianjin Fan is a descendant of the three-eyed star people. Just like a hybrid of Saiyan and Earthling. What? Oh my god, Tianjin Fan is also an alien. Bulma, who was in Lin Chuan's arms, was the first to exclaim and forgot to break free from Lin Chuan's hand. First it was Goku, then Piccolo and Lord Tenjin, and now it's Tianjin Fan. Krillin was completely dumbfounded. He began to wonder if he was from the nose star. Compared with people on Earth, he has no nose, but he is no different from normal people. And dumplings, are they also aliens? Although his appearance is similar, his skin is nothing like it. Frankly speaking, he really wouldn't believe such words from other people. But when it comes out of Lin Chuan's mouth, you have to believe it. After all, they are so powerful and have a lot of extraterrestrial knowledge reserves. Naturally, they know more than they know. Not only Klin, but everyone looked at Tianjin Fan in disbelief. Who would have thought that Tianjin Fan, who is the closest to Earthlings in appearance but with one extra eye, is actually an alien like Goku? I should have thought of it a long time ago. Tianjin rice is indeed different from ordinary Earthlings. Logically speaking, it is impossible for Earthlings to grow a third eye. Even if there is a certain probability of mutation, three eyes will not. Maybe he was trained to the level of Tianjin Fan. God Piccolo started to speak, but he didn't say much. It was just what he thought he was smart about. It would be strange if he really doubted it. Three-eyed star people. Three-eyed star people. I didn't expect that I am also an alien. There is a problem with Tianjin Fan's worldview. He himself never doubted that he was not from Earth. As a result, the Saiyan's true identity was revealed today by the Saiyan in front of him. Regardless of whether Tianjin is an alien or not, in Dumpling's heart, Tianjin rice is Tianjin rice. Dumpling stood aside to comfort Tianjin Raya's turbulent heart. After hearing what the most important other half of his life said, Tianjin Fan took a deep breath and quickly came back to his senses. He was relieved. As quickly as possible, he accepted this fact and smiled at the dumplings. As Dumpling said, so what if he is from the three-eyed star? He loves the earth. The earth is his home. He is from earth. In fact, there is nothing wrong with Tianjin Fan having this idea. He is a mixed race himself and has half of the blood of earthlings. It seems that I have unknowingly exposed a person's identity again. However, you, the three-eyed star, are not pure. You should be a hybrid of a three-eyed star and an earthling, right? Otherwise, the aura will also be they won't be so similar to people on Earth. Lin Chuan said and looked at Sun Wuhan again. Just like this little guy Gohan, the reason why his breath has the breath of people on Earth is because he has the blood of earthlings. In the simplest way, explain exactly what Tianjin rice is. I see, thank you for informing me. Tianjin Fan expressed his gratitude for the information given by Lin Chuan. He suddenly felt that the Saiyan in front of him was not evil and scary. Although they had just burst out to suppress them, they did not actually take action. It should be said that everything happens for a reason. If the aliens showed murderous intentions towards him, if it were him and he was strong enough, he would not easily get over it. Tianjin Fan looked at Yamcha. Knowing that this brother revealed his murderous intention towards Lin Chuan because of Bulma. However, he is not a person who does not distinguish between right and wrong. According to what Bulma said before, he and Yamcha should have broken up. If they broke up, it would be inappropriate for Yamcha to pursue Lin Chuan for holding Bulma and question her with murderous intent. I have never encountered such a situation, and it is not easy for Tianjin Fans to interrupt. After all, he never knew anything about the relationship between men and women. The focus returned to Yamcha again. Only then did Bulma realize that she was still being held by Lin Chuan. He immediately left Lin Chuan's arms, but his blushing cheeks would not go away quickly. Lin Chuan naturally didn't care about this. The purpose was also achieved. Whether it's his or Bulma's. Forget it, there's no need to get into this situation. Seeing Yamcha's miserable state of being suppressed by Lin Chuan, Bulma suddenly felt unbearable. After all, I have been getting along with Yamcha for so many years. Although Yamcha spends all his time flirting with women, after so many years, even if there is no love between man and woman, they are still partners for many years. It's true that she had to take a breath and didn't expect it to develop to this point. From now on, she will have to think carefully about whether she and Yamcha are compatible. Yamcha's performance did indeed disappoint her, as Lin Chuan said. If Yamcha dares to fight Lin Chuan for her this time, she will forgive him again if he dares to take a step forward or even say a word. But as Lin Chuan said, Yamcha didn't put her first at all. As you wish, but there are some things you must say first. If you take the initiative to release murderous intent on me next time, then I will not pretend that nothing happened. Lin Chuan's eyes narrowed. He also has a bottom line. This time Quan thought he also had a wrong idea and the robbery was too blatant. However, the two parties have broken up, whether it is true or not, and they have been separated for a long time. If this is the case, then he is not really stealing. All I can say is seize the opportunity. Locked with Lin Chuan's gaze, Yamcha trembled all over and sweated profusely. He really had the courage just now to win back Bulma's heart. But when he met Lin Chuan's eyes, he was scared again. Now that he thought about what he had done over the years, he began to regret it. If he had known today, he shouldn't have just passed by Bulma's house some time ago. He should have put aside his bullshit dignity and gone in, explained to Bulma, and promised not to mess around again. Now, it's too late. Just because he couldn't get satisfaction in that aspect, he chose to steal love. Their eyes met. Bulma turned her head and stopped looking at Yamcha. Yamcha could only look away and divert his attention. He couldn't show his displeasure, nor could he show his hatred for Lin Chuan. Full of cleverness, he began to make calculations, thinking that there would always be a chance to change Bulma's mind in the future. He would never have thought that he would never have a chance again. Bypassing Yamcha, he also bypassed everyone. Lin Chuan came to Sun Wuhan. Returning to Tianjin Temple, although meeting Tianjin Rice, Dumplings and Yamuti was one of them, the real purpose was to take him away, so Lin Chuan did not intend to waste time anymore. After some exchanges, Sun Wufan did not resist him. Instead, he cleverly called him Uncle Lin Chuan, but Lin Chuan was so embarrassed that he was embarrassed to leave the little guy behind. Sun Wuhan is willing, so how can others stop him? Even though Sun Wuhan was still young, his fathers entrusted their children to each other. Coupled with Lin Chuan's strength, even if they wanted to stop him, it would be impossible. Just watching Lin Chuan take away Sun Wuhan. And, of course, Bulma. No one said a word to stop it. It wasn't until they watched the three people disappear from sight that they barely came back to their senses. Still no one spoke. It was the god Piccolo who stood up and stimulated their group of warriors with words from his perspective. Do you understand the difference in strength now? The Saiyan invaders who arrive on Earth a year later will most likely have the same combat power as Lin Chuan just now. Although Lin Chuan's previous statement did not take the two Saiyans seriously, the actual situation is still unknown. 1 year, only 1 year. I don't want to place all my hopes on Goku, and I don't want to leave the future of the Earth in the hands of that Saiyan Lin Chuan. So, you must be fully prepared. Welcome the most cruel devil training. God Piccolo's serious words carried a strong sense of depression. There is no doubt that the reason why he asked Sun Wuhan to stay and let Lin Chuan and Bulma go to the Dragon Ball to make wishes first was to use Lin Chuan's power to scare these good seedlings he found. As long as it serves as an incentive and gives them a clear goal for their future, it will definitely make them stronger. Everyone understood what God Piccolo meant, nodded one after another, and expressed their thoughts. All in all, this is what I ask the God Piccolo to give me for guidance. In the original work, they did use the God Piccolo to improve their skills. In a blink of an eye. At night, it is the largest and most prosperous city on Earth. Western capital. At Bulma's invitation, Lin Chuan took Sun Wufan back home on the large transport jet she left on Turtle Island. You said, can't this jet be retracted into the capsule? There was no other reason. Naturally, the jet dragged Lin Chuan's spaceship, so the capsule could not be recovered and could only be driven back to Exodus manually. This was the case before, so we drove to Guaxian Island. Later, Lin Chuan felt that the jet was too slow, so he directly carried Bulma to find the Dragon Balls. Now that all the important things have been done and my basic goals have been achieved, there is no need to be too anxious. On the contrary, it takes a certain amount of time to think and consider the next detailed plan. First, of course, how should I carry out my own cultivation? How to change the plot in the future. The second is how Sun Wuhan guides. No matter how you say it, he needs to take action just to show off. Arrive at Bulma's house, Magnum Capsule Company's private residential estate. The first impression can only be described in one word, that is big. It's so ridiculously big that you can't even imagine it. Lin Chuan is not the kind of bumpkin who has never seen the world. As a time traveler, what kind of mansions and estates have he not seen? No matter how bad it is, I have seen countless photos and videos of my past life on the internet. Still, it was hard not to be shocked. The main reason is that Bulma's family is backed by the Great Plains of Exodus, so if we really want to calculate the size of the area, there is no certainty. At least, it is calculated in square kilometers. To put it simply, a front yard, a backyard, plus a garden, just the normal living area covers tens of thousands of square meters. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the manor. The huge ecological park can provide survival for large creatures such as dinosaurs. That large warehouse group is as big as a port. There are dozens of buildings of different shapes, the research area, etc. Anyone else would find it unbelievable. It should be said that it is indeed the #1 universal capsule company on Earth. Even in this era, when Bulma was just beginning to manage her own property, she should not be underestimated. In any other place, this piece of private land could be considered a sizable town. Jet landing. Bulma jumped off, and Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan also got off the jet. Before Lin Chuan could say anything, he heard Sun Wuhan's surprised sigh, "Is this Aunt Bulma's home? It's really big." Sun Wuhan was like a curious baby, looking around. Everything he saw overturned his small world view. In the past, he only lived in the remote Baozi mountain. Although he knew a lot of information about the outside world through books, he had never gone out, let alone a modern city. For him, it's like entering a new world now. Little Gohan, what you see now is only a small part of my home. After dinner later, I will take you for a walk. Speaking of which, your father entrusted you to Lin Chuan. From now on, Lin Chuan will temporarily live in my house, and you will also have to live here for a while. Bulma said as she used the remote control to lower the spaceship on the jet. Sun Wuhan on the side said, and stopped talking. He just stared with wide eyes. Under Bulma's control, the spaceship quickly landed. At this time, many robots approached to provide assistance. Such a scene shocked Lin Chuan. You must know that such a scene has never appeared in the original work. Even though Bulma's family has intelligent robots in the original book, there are only a few of them. Because of the surprised looks of Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan, Bulma liked to see them. The corners of her mouth undulated slightly, and she handed the remote control in her hand to the robot to continue operating it. Just leave it to the robots for now. It's already past 6 o'clock. Let's go have dinner first. When I come back, I will arrange for the home robot to start preparing. With the intention of surprising Lin Chuan, Bulma drove Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan in the sightseeing car, and introduced them while driving to the huge round house in the distance. Not only the division of each area was explained to them, but also the significance of the existence of each different building. 10 minutes later, the three of them arrived at the main house of the manor. It's the huge round house that appeared n times in the original work. For Lin Chuan, this landmark building is now relatively familiar. In the past, he only thought that no matter how big Bulma's house was, it only had several large gardens. No one knew it was so terrifying. After entering the main house, Lin Chuan also met Bulma's father and mother, Mr. and Mrs. Brive. The couple was extremely surprised by the identities of Lin Chuan and Sun Wufan. First of all, this is the third man Bulma has brought home. Secondly, Goku, who is younger than Bulma, has a child. Can you not be shocked? Looking at my daughter, as a woman, if she delays it any longer, she will become an older leftover daughter. Of course, Bulma wouldn't listen to her parents' hints about this. In the original novel, she is determined to have her own way. Let her make do, it is better to kill her. How can the parents not know what kind of temper their daughter has? So seeing that surgery on their daughter was useless, the Brives focused their attention on Lin Chuan. Especially Bulma's mother, Lin Chuan was a little flattered by her tentative approach. Chapter 41. After several exchanges, under Bulma's force, Lin Chuan got rid of his mother's entanglement in an awkward manner. It should be said that the practice of taking action at every turn is really unacceptable. If you didn't know what kind of person he is, you would really think that this is Neptune. I have to say that Bulma's mother looks young, as if she is in her 30s. Although there is an explanation in the original work, seeing it with one's own eyes, it is hard to believe that this is the mother of two daughters, who is nearly 50 or 60 years old. Looking at Brive's appearance, he looks like an old man. After bidding farewell to the Brive couple, Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan were brought to the restaurant by Bulma. The delicious food that caught his eye, coupled with the tangy fragrance that hit his nostrils, instantly aroused Lin Chuan's appetite and made Sun Wufan unable to help but swallow his saliva. For Lin Chuan, not to mention the space navigation process in the previous 3 months, just talking about the turmoil on the Earth for so long, he was so hungry that his chest was pressed against his back. His body was now craving for food, and his stomach even began to growl in protest of his abuse. The sumptuous dinner could be said to have completely convinced Lin Chuan. At this moment, thinking about the hard life of the Doomsday for more than 20 years before, my eyes suddenly seemed to well up. He had better suppress her, otherwise it would be so ugly for a grown man to cry. When it comes to delicious food, there is no need to be reserved. Lin Chuan sat at the dining table without saying a word, grabbed a roast chicken and started gnawing on it. Seeing this, Sun Wuhan stopped being polite at Bulma's signal and sat down to enjoy his meal. Although Sun Wufan is still young, his appetite is not small at all. He has perfectly inherited the attributes of the Saiyan Big Eater. Seeing the two of them looking like they had never eaten anything delicious in their lives, Bulma couldn't help but pursed her lips and laughed. This also reminded her of the time when Wukong ate in front of her. It seems that Goku is not the only one who can eat it. It seems that all Saiyans can eat it. Eat slowly, eat slowly. There is still a lot. If it's not enough, I can let the robot continue to do it. Bulma's words were like a stimulant to Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan. One big and one small, even chewing felt like a waste of time, so they just started swallowing them whole. It's delicious. It's completely different from the food made by my mother. I've never eaten it before. Under the interference of Lin Chuan, Sun Wufan also began to learn to eat and drink in large gulps. This also gave him a different feeling. No need to pretend. The dinner lasted nearly an hour. It wasn't until the plates on Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan's left and right sides were stacked almost like mountains that they ended the food fight. Seeing this, Bulma couldn't help but sigh in her heart. How could an ordinary family afford to support this? Suddenly, Bulma began to feel sympathy for Chi-Chi. Not only does Wukong have to be taken care of, but Sun Wufan is also waiting for him to be fed. After the meal, they rested for only 10 minutes. Bulma had already prepared a rest room and clothes for Lin Chuan and Sun Wuhan to wash and change. Lin Chuan, who had suffered enough, felt as if he had arrived in heaven. The past will no longer exist. His future will be extremely bright. Came to the room and enjoyed the long-lost feeling of taking a bath. Lin Chuan didn't know it, but taking a hot bath was like a dream to him. Not to mention, there's a bathtub. I haven't experienced this in more than 20 years. Until another half hour passed, Lin Chuan lay comfortably on the big bed. The feeling of warmth and comfort is like a gentle hometown. A feeling of sleepiness came over him, and Lin Chuan fell directly into sleep. So bold and unprepared, naturally, Lin Chuan knew that it was very safe here. Bulma wouldn't do anything to him, and no one on earth would come to him to ask for trouble. However, Lin Chuan never thought that not long after he fell asleep, Bulma knocked on the door. After seeing him sleeping like a dead pig, she quietly examined him for a long time before leaving the room. The next day, as a ray of sunlight shone through the window, Lin Chuan woke up suddenly and broke into a cold sweat. It wasn't until he saw his surroundings clearly that he breathed a sigh of relief. While sleeping, the dream world keeps switching. One moment the past life, the other moment this life. Especially the last dream, which made him think that he was just dreaming when he arrived on Earth and activated the system. Dreams are confused with reality. You open your eyes on one side and think the other side is a dream. After slowly getting up, he went to the bathroom and took a shower. Only then did Lin Chuan completely relax, and all the tension was gone. If it weren't for the feeling brought by this powerful strength, he would really doubt whether he was in a dream or reality. Open the system panel. Host: Lin Chuan. Age: 25. Height: 185 cm. Weight: 75 kg. Combat Power Index: 110,775 points. The current level of the system: Level 1. Automatically hanging up. Combat Power +1 per second. After just a nap, just one night, his combat power exceeded 100,000 points. Reached 110,000 points. 110,000 combat power. This was an unattainable number before. After more than 20 years of hard training, he has only reached 15,000 combat power points. It's not that he looks down on his hard work, but when conditions were limited, he might not be able to reach 100,000 points in his lifetime. With my current strength, even Ginyu of the Ginyu Special Forces is capable of fighting. Lin Chuan muttered softly. Ginyu. In the original work, Frieza is the real elite and the strongest subordinate, with a combat power of up to 120,000 points. In just one day, Lin Chuan was already on par with him. According to this progress, in 5 days, his combat power data will be comparable to that of Frieza, who has not transformed. He clenched his fist, and the surging power in his body seemed to be able to build a 10,000-meter mountain with one punch. It's time to practice. I don't want to become a slave to strength. Unable to hide his excitement, Lin Chuan put on another set of loose clothes. Bulma is a very discerning woman. Her clothes are not too big or too small, and the styles are also very suitable for him. After walking out of the room, Lin Chuan went downstairs. He originally planned to go out and practice kung fu first, but suddenly he was attracted by a burst of fragrance, which made his eyes light up and he quickly ran to the restaurant. It's not that he can't control his mouth, but that after so many years of suffering, he can finally make up for it, and he must be satisfied. Bulma and Sun Wuhan, who were enjoying breakfast, were surprised by Lin Chuan's intrusion. Then seeing Lin Chuan start eating without saying a word, Bulma rolled her eyes. It's really rude not to say hello. With that said, Bulma still ordered the smart home robot to continue preparing some breakfast. Knowing that Lin Chuan had a big appetite, the food on the table would definitely not be enough. A breakfast made Lin Chuan once again realize what it means to truly be alive. If we were still on planet V3114, it would be okay to eat as much as we wanted, but the food wouldn't be as good as here. Simply the freshness and variety of the food are incomparable. Looking back on the past, Lin Chuan remembered how miserable it was when he first arrived on planet V3114. If it weren't for the several months of compressed food reserves in the spaceship, and the fact that he was a time traveler himself and knew how to obtain food in desperate situations, he would have died long ago. It should be said that he is very lucky, because even if the civilization of that planet has not entered the space era, it has already developed to the level of the Earth. Especially research on food storage. Just say that those foods are made to have a shelf life of decades and will not go bad, which shows how amazing they are. It's a pity that this aspect is really great, but in other aspects it is extremely stretched. Lin Chuan later learned through some special methods from the videos of the planet's remains and various information that because planet V3114 was a very troubled planet, the scientists on the planet would put aside everything and devote themselves to research how to stock up on more food. To put it simply, with the movement of the celestial bodies, the planet will experience minor disasters every 10 years and major disasters every 100 years. Over time, the indigenous people on the planet realized that food was the most important necessity for their survival. Therefore, there are very terrifying food reserves and advanced food preservation methods. Even if Lin Chuan had eaten for more than 20 years, he had only eaten a drop in the bucket of the remaining food reserves. You need to know that these so-called remains were after the meteorite impact. To sum up, this nation is a very miserable nation. They thought they could survive one disaster after another with the help of food reserves, but they completely ignored the threats from outside. Without the protection of other technological powers, the power of life forms is even more fragile. A huge meteorite hundreds of kilometers away hit the planet and overturned the entire civilization in one fell swoop. Even if they hid underground, there was not a single survivor left. Waking up from his memories, Lin Chuan recovered his thoughts. After communicating with Bulma and Son Gohan for a few words, they came to the nearest open space in the backyard together. The huge courtyard is also connected to the garden. It's really nice to have such a good place for practicing. Of course, Lin Chuan was just doing warm-up exercises and would not mess around. Otherwise, if he broke out casually here, everything good would be destroyed. Bulma did not stay here for long. After giving a few instructions, she went to do other things. The spacecraft needs research and repair. Bulma also needs to master alien technology. Also, many matters of the capsule company have been handled by her. It was also a good thing for Lin Chuan that she went to do her thing, because he also needed to calm down and think about future arrangements. Originally, these plans were supposed to be completed last night, but I fell asleep directly. Of course, Lin Chuan already had some preliminary ideas. Anyway, he was now living at Bulma's house and didn't have to worry about any other trivial matters. The matter of repairing the spaceship and building the spaceship was already told to Bulma yesterday. She didn't guarantee that she would be able to do it, but Lin Chuan knew that she would be able to do it, and in the shortest time. There is also a gravity training room. Lin Chuan mentioned it while eating breakfast just now. Bulma has never thought about this aspect and has never studied it. Now that it was mentioned, she became interested. She didn't say that it would be possible to create it, but Lin Chuan knew that it would be a piece of cake for her. It should be noted that in the original work, although Breve first created the 100-fold gravity environment and combined it with the spaceship, Bulma was even worse than Breve. Even if he encounters a bottleneck, Breve will not sit back and watch. To put it simply, Lin Chuan knows how to proceed step by step. After all, scientific research breakthroughs, like improvements in strength, require time to settle. In the courtyard, without anyone else, only Lin Chuan and Sun Wufan were left. Because he knew that Sun Wufan at this time had not even done basic training, Lin Chuan could not come up and teach him anything directly. With Sun Wuhan watching from the side, Lin Chuan briefly moved his body and did some warm-up exercises to fully familiarize himself with his current level of strength. All he did was simple punches, kicks and a series of basic training. As for the means and skills, they were only used slightly. Frankly speaking, in terms of boxing, kicking, and various hand-to-hand combat techniques, even if Lin Chuan had to explore and practice on his own, he had achieved a lot, but he thought he was not good at it yet, and he was just average. After all, on planet V3114, although Lin Chuan has been practicing, he actually has no opponent, so his combat experience is really poor. Without enough combat experience, there will be great limitations on improving one's own kung fu. This will also be an aspect that Lin Chuan needs to hone and become stronger in the future, and the system cannot grant it. Suspended in the void, Lin Chuan slowly breathed a sigh of relief. After a full 10 or 20 minutes of venting, Lin Chuan finally had a clearer feeling. With the improvement of the system, my own strength has reached more than 110,000 now, but I don't feel out of control at all. On the contrary, the improvement of combat power is as if it comes from self-cultivation. Now that we no longer have such worries, we won't need to spend too much energy on practicing and controlling in the future. Lin Chuan kept scheming as he muttered in his mouth. If the power cannot be controlled, then he must spend a lot of time. However, proficiency requires proficiency. No matter how powerful the system is, it must form muscle memory itself. After thinking for a moment, Lin Chuan slowly descended and finally landed firmly on the ground. Before he could say anything, Sun Wuhan on the side couldn't wait to walk up, his little eyes full of desire. Uncle Lin Chuan, can you teach me how to fly? Sun Wufan's words surprised Lin Chuan. This kid is so proactive, so unexpected. In fact, at this time in the original work, Sun Wuhan and his understanding of Sun Wuhan were timid, unwilling to get in touch with new things. He took the initiative to say that he wanted to learn to fly. Even if this was not about learning how to fight and become stronger, it was still a breakthrough. Yes, how could I forget it? In the original Majin Buu chapter, Sun Wuhan taught Vidili to learn how to condense energy and learn the air dance technique. I can definitely copy it. It just so happens that this kid wants to learn Wukong. An idea flashed in his mind, and this temporarily solved Sun Wuhan's problem. After all, simply guiding his own energy and controlling his own energy to learn Wukong technique is enough for him to practice for a long time. During this time, he can also carry out his own training, and then wait for Bulma to complete the construction of the spaceship and gravity training room. With the decision made, Lin Chuan smiled slightly. To be honest, I'm surprised that you took the initiative to ask me for advice. Gohan, I can sense that there is a very terrifying potential in your body, but you can't guide it out. Although you are still very young, only 4 years old. But you have to know that we Saiyans are not different from Earthlings. In the next period of time, I will guide you on how to practice. And if you want to learn how to fly, you must learn how to control your own chi. Gas. After hearing what Lin Chuan said, Sun Wuhan immediately grasped the key point. It should be said that he is really smart. No wonder I can really become a scholar through my own efforts in the future. Frankly speaking, the vast majority of Saiyans are fighting types. Although there are auxiliary non-combatants, there are almost no warriors like Sun Wuhan who are both incredibly smart and have unlimited potential. To describe it in one word, it is both civil and military. Looking at Sun Wuhan, Lin Chuan couldn't help but think of the settings in his previous life. Anyway, in the original work, he was originally supposed to replace Sun Wukong as the protagonist, but unfortunately he later became Nobihan. With a thought in his mind, Lin Chuan sighed and prepared his words. It seems that Sun Wukong guy really hasn't taught you anything. Lin Chuan complained. His father is the best martial artist on earth, but his son was raised like this. Actually, I wanted to exercise with my father, but my mother was afraid that I would be injured, so she never agreed. Sun Wuhan replied with a little aggrievedness. Hearing this, Lin Chuan secretly said that it was true. Then he didn't take it seriously. Many things are inherently controversial. Is Chi-Chi at fault? She wasn't wrong either. It can only be said that the considerations are different. Frankly speaking, Lin Chuan can actually understand. What he meant when he said that Sun Wukong didn't teach Sun Wuhan anything was that he didn't even tell Sun Wuhan what qi was. Okay, let's not talk about your family's past for now. Let me tell you first, what is anger? Qi is the most fundamental energy in living things, and it is something that everyone in our lives has. This power hidden in life can be freely manipulated with practice or training. It's like this. As he spoke, Lin Chuan raised his hand and condensed a golden ball of light. For beginners, it is impossible to condense such a large ball of energy in an instant. But after cultivating qi to a certain level and knowing how to use it, you can use it at will. Is this anger, Uncle Lin Chuan? Sun Wuhan asked knowingly, and his eyes widened in curiosity. The first time he came into contact with cultivation, and directly with qi, Sun Wufan naturally opened up a new world. Nodding slightly, Lin Chuan withdrew the ball of energy and continued. There are many categories of energy, and there are more uses for it. For example, we can use qi to perform energy attacks, which you have seen not long ago. You can control qi to cause more powerful damage during close combat, etc. Of course, flying is one of them. So, you said that if you want to learn how to fly, cultivating qi is the first step. Only if you learn to cultivate and control qi, can you fly in the sky. After the words fell, Lin Chuan controlled his body to levitate again. Only this time it was just off the ground. Sun Wuhan was stunned for a moment after hearing this, but he generally understood that he had to learn how to use qi before he could do various things, such as fly. After landing again, Lin Chuan looked at Sun Wuhan with a smile. Uncle Lin Chuan, please teach me. Sun Wufan, who was full of courtesy, really felt like a child who could be taught. He has said so, do you still need to hesitate? Immediately, Lin Chuan took him to sit cross-legged on the grass and guided him to guide his qi first to feel the existence of qi. This method, simply put, relies on your own understanding. Regarding the cultivation of qi, Lin Chuan spent 2 or 3 years before reaching a certain level. Simply speaking, it took Lin Chuan several days to guide the qi in his body to make himself feel the existence of qi. Even with the help of the Saiyan's inherited memories, they are naturally equipped with energy-based attacks, but without the qi training method, it is still very difficult to guide them. To put it simply, when he was only 2 or 3 years old at the time, he learned to run before he could walk. When you come back and want to walk well, you will find that you can't walk well at all. Only by practicing over time and accumulating bit by bit in the process can we truly and completely control our own power. Vegeta in the original book discovered this, and then relied on the battle with Sun Wukong to gain insights into this aspect after recovering from serious injuries, and was able to quickly master a series of uses of qi. At that time, in fact, it was only the initial learning to sense qi and control one's own qi. Later, when he arrived on Earth, Vegeta's true transformation began. Vegeta is a genius. There is no doubt about this. But the reason why his strength has improved so quickly and he has cultivated qi to a certain level is because he has enough strength, so the basic aspects of cultivating qi will be very easy. Just like when Lin Chuan's strength reached thousands or even 10,000 points, the basic use and cultivation of qi seemed extremely simple. Remember, guiding your own qi does not mean forcing you to exert force, nor does it force your body to exert force. You need to feel it with your heart and guide it with your heart. After standing up, Lin Chuan did not forget to say something to Sun Wuhan. Then he stopped disturbing him and walked away alone. Sun Wufan's cultivation problem was temporarily solved, and Lin Chuan also needed to think about other things. He would not have thought that just because he changed Sun Wuhan's cultivation method and taught Sun Wuhan how to sense and guide the qi in his body, Sun Wuhan would have the current era in a short period of time in the future. Z Warrior level power. The potential within Sun Wuhan's body is unlimited. With a little guidance, the potential will explode, and his combat power will also increase dramatically. Of course, these are all things for later. For him, he still needs some time to seriously consolidate his own strength. Even if the combat power given by the system is as if it was obtained through self-cultivation. Arriving alone in another open space, Lin Chuan slowly sat down, holding his hands on his chest, his eyes shining. When he was doing warm-up exercises just now, he noticed something strange. That is, as his strength increases and his combat power increases, his body seems to be conveying a feeling of dissatisfaction to him. It felt like he could burst out with great power, as if he could increase his strength dramatically with just a little training. As my combat power increases by 1 every second, my potential is also increasing. So my body is telling me instinctively. Lin Chuan thought. This can be verified in the next period of time. Closing his eyes, Lin Chuan entered the world of meditation. This training method can be said to be learned from Piccolo and Krillin in the original work. There were no opponents before, and there were no good training methods. Meditation and simulating opponents to fight in the subconscious world were one of Lin Chuan's few methods. Time flies by like a white horse. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed by. A certain wilderness area in the ecological garden of the Universal Capsule private residential estate. 2 figures, one large and one small, are practicing basic battle training here. If it's not Lin Chuan and Sun Wufan, then who is it? In the past few days, Sun Wuhan was like a follower, practicing with Lin Chuan and embarking on the path of a practitioner becoming stronger. You said, didn't you teach Sun Wufan to sense qi, guide qi, and cultivate qi? Indeed, originally, Lin Chuan thought that simply sensing qi and guiding qi would require Monkey King to practice for a long time. After all, this required him to understand the secret. What's more, Sun Wuhan has never been exposed to this aspect of cultivation. However, what he didn't expect was that it only took Sun Wuhan less than a day to sense the qi, and to guide the qi out in one breath. Although it only succeeded once, it still shocked Lin Chuan. I thought it was a coincidence, but what I didn't expect was that the next day, Sun Wuhan could release his energy easily and with ease. Under this situation, Lin Chuan had the urge to curse. Meow, people are so irritating. I think he still understood the plot of the original work and determined the general training method to try. It took him several days to succeed and nearly 10 days to become fully proficient. Although he was only 2 or 3 years old at the time, smaller than Sun Wuhan now, this cannot be used as an excuse to be inferior to others. This talent, this bone, is really incredible. Especially after being guided by qi, Lin Chuan could clearly feel that Sun Wuhan's superficial strength had improved. The system also showed that his combat power value reached 100 points. You can see how much other people's combat power is through system capabilities. This is a hidden function that Lin Chuan discovered after trying it out on a whim after groping for a long time. As long as he stares at the target seriously, he can see the combat power index held by the target. Not only did Sun Wuhan's combat power improve, but his young body also became extra tough with the blessing of his own strength. In 2 days, he completed all the training steps assigned to him by Lin Chuan. Even on the 3rd day, Sun Wuhan himself showed some tricks and was able to concentrate energy bombs on his own. That's right, the protagonist module is activated. Outrageous, really outrageous. However, his potential is number 1 in the original work. After 3 days of accumulation, on the 4th day, Lin Chuan also had to seriously teach Sun Wu the method of practicing Wukong. In fact, the practice of Wukong is simpler than guiding qi, sensing qi, and controlling qi. Because as long as you can guide your qi out, it proves that you can initially control your own qi. In this way, how difficult is it to use qi to lift one's body and fly into the sky? Sun Wuhan's terrifying talent was once again made known to Lin Chuan, and there was really no need to waste any more words in teaching him. He just casually taught Wukong technique, and once people learned it casually, they were already able to perform operations such as floating and emptying on their own. Although flying is still relatively difficult, as long as you become more proficient in controlling qi, and as long as the qi gets bigger and stronger, flying will be nothing more than a breeze. On the 5th day, as always, Sun Wuhan shocked Lin Chuan again. First of all, he has completely mastered the Wukong technique and can fly freely in the sky. Secondly, Sun Wuhan took the initiative to tell him that it seemed that because he had mastered the Wukong technique, when he was practicing qi sensing qi, he would always feel like he couldn't help but lose control of the power in his body. This aroused Lin Chuan's curiosity. Until he saw Sun Wuhan's active burst of anger, Lin Chuan was confused. At the age of 4, He only practiced for less than 5 days, and his combat power exceeded 500 points without knowing it. What's especially important is that this is something Sun Wuhan can control himself. It seems that the qi cultivation taught by Lin Chuan indirectly opened a little of the big lock that trapped Sun Wuhan's potential, thus allowing his strength to increase rapidly. Such results have been achieved in such a short period of time. Compared with Sun Wufan's year of outdoor survival training in the original work, it is more effective. It is conceivable that it will break 500 points in less than 5 days. It is no exaggeration to say that in a few days, I am afraid there will be no problem breaking 1000 points. After understanding Sun Wuhan's current situation, Lin Chuan began to stop perfunctory and let him go. Especially on this day, because of Bulma's information, Chi-Chi found this place and something happened. Lin Chuan saw a different Sun Wufan and understood Sun Wufan's desire to become stronger. He longs to become stronger to protect everything he wants to protect. A child's lofty dream, because he chose to be independent, Sun Wufan refused his mother for the first time in his life to think about himself. He didn't want to grow up in a greenhouse, so he used a tough attitude to make Chi-Chi make concessions and changes, and then took the initiative to find Lin Chuan to make a request. So, starting from the 6th day, Lin Chuan taught Sun Wuhan basic training, and then spent 2 hours a day sparring with him to hone his fighting skills. Not to mention other things, Sun Wufan did respect him enough and regarded him as a mentor and an elder in his family. He obeyed his words and never complained. Such a mind cannot be separated from Chi-Chi's teachings, so Chi-Chi is also successful. Single quote. As the afterglow of the setting sun faded away the last blush of the sunset, Sun Wuhan jumped up after giving out his last shout, and punched hard with his last punch. Naturally, Lin Chuan took it firmly in his hand and easily resolved it, and allowed him to stand firmly on the ground. The power is pretty good. It's better than yesterday, but there are still too many redundant movements. Remember that in battle, any fancy tricks are useless. Facing Sun Wuhan, Lin Chuan said to him. Yes, Uncle Lin Chuan. Although Sun Wufan was very tired and breathing heavily, he still responded obediently as soon as possible. Lin Chuan was very satisfied with this. In fact, if he hadn't been a time traveler, or if he hadn't known what the future would be like, accepting a child like Sun Wuhan as his apprentice would have been the absolutely right choice. After having enough rest, Lin Chuan did not delay and said to Sun Wuhan, "Today's practice is over, we should go back." After that, Lin Chuan directly used Wukong Jutsu to fly up and headed towards Bulma's big round house. Sun Wufan has long been proficient in Wukong. Although his speed has not reached the standard, he can still reach speeds of tens to hundreds of meters per second. Don't think that this speed is very fast. After several days of continuous training, Sun Wuhan's combat power is already comparable to that of the year he spent training with Piccolo in the original work. Combat power 950 points. This number completely surpassed Raditz's father, Sun Wukong, who exploded with all his strength when he first arrived on Earth. And if he uses energy attacks, Sun Wuhan's maximum combat power can reach 1200 points. This was tested by Lin Chuan himself, but after using this energy burst, his energy would be quickly depleted, and his combat power would quickly drop to less than 600 or 700 points. Going back to the flying speed, according to this combat power, the flying speed can completely exceed the speed of sound, or even several times the speed of sound. If you can't do it, you can only say that you haven't practiced enough. Back to the big round house. Lin Chuan and Sun Wufan immediately took a hot bath with Chi-Chi's help. Of course, Lin Chuan did not ask her to do this, and even declined many times. Just because Sun Wufan lives here and practices with Lin Chuan, Chi-Chi, in order to take good care of Sun Wufan and hope that Lin Chuan can teach him everything, will help put the hot water every time, and by the way, organize your laundry. It should be said that Sun Wukong is really a lucky person. People say that Chi-Chi is mean, harsh, and even doesn't understand anything and only thinks about herself. In fact, she really goes out of her way to take care of people. Although she would say some uncomfortable words from time to time, her heart was good. After taking a bath, Lin Chuan put on clean and loose clothes and walked out of the room. At this time, the tempting aroma has come from the restaurant. It was also prepared in advance every day after Chi-Chi arrived. It can be said that she brought all the pots and pans from home and prepared to fight a protracted war at Bulma's house. For her son to eat well, wear well, and live well, as a mother, she was worried about it. Of course, Sun Wuhan was indeed worthy of her efforts. While she supported her son, Son Gohan never let her down. I practice every day during the day, read and study during my free time, and do homework at night. This kid is simply a monster. Lin Chuan couldn't say anything in person. He could only remind Sun Wufan when he was alone to communicate with him, pay attention to rest, and don't overexert your physical strength and mental energy at the same time. As a result, Sun Wufan said to him, "I'm not tired at all." From then on, Lin Chuan vowed never to say anything like this to him again. They are actually smarter than he thinks and know how to make reasonable arrangements, so there is no need for him to worry. After dinner, because Sun Wufan had to study, Lin Chuan also ushered in the most relaxing moment of his day. Every day during the day, he would perform visible exercises and also provide guidance to Sun Wuhan. Every night, he would meditate to a certain extent. Naturally, before meditating, it was the most comfortable moment, the so-called combination of work and rest. I have been here for 10 days and nothing has changed every day. As his strength increased, his weight also soared, and his figure became more and more muscular. This is closely related to food, clothing, housing and transportation, especially food. In more than 20 years of life on the Doomsday Planet, even if I didn't starve myself, what would I eat? It is just what is needed to maintain one's own life. No matter how full you eat, it only provides basic nutrition to keep you from being thin, but you are not burly either. Opening the system panel, Lin Chuan looked at the properties on the property panel with a smile. Host: Lin Chuan. Age: 25. Height: 185 cm. Weight: 85 kg. Combat Power Index: 981,780 points. The current level of the system: Level 1. Automatically hanging up. Combat Power plus 1 per second. The distance to 1 million combat power is getting closer and closer. In more than 9 and nearly 10 days, Lin Chuan's combat power increased by 800,000 points with the help of the system. You said, counting the initial 110,000 combat power, doesn't it only have 910,000 combat power points? Of course, this has something to do with Lin Chuan's self-cultivation. While the system was increasing combat power, Lin Chuan was also practicing. Even though the improvement was not as dramatic as the system's increase, it was still very good. It should be said that after arriving on Earth, Lin Chuan's thoughts and memories of his past life began to flow wildly, which made him think of many new ideas. It should be noted that increasing the combat power by tens of thousands in less than 10 days is actually quite impressive. Tonight is when he breaks through the 1 million combat power mark. In more than 3 hours, even if I do nothing, my combat power will exceed 1 million. Standing on the rooftop, Lin Chuan looked at the sea of stars in the universe. The weather is very good today, the night sky is exceptionally bright, and the stars are extremely dazzling. And the moon, it's not a full moon yet. However, it seems that the full moon is approaching. I remember that Son Gohan in the original book saw the full moon while being trained by Piccolo, so he turned into a gorilla. Later, in order to prevent this kind of thing from happening, Piccolo blew up the moon in one breath. This point, until later when Vegeta invaded the Earth, the North Kaio King secretly gave Piccolo a thumbs up. After admiring it for a long time, Lin Chuan walked back to the sofa nearby. Meditation training begins. In his meditative world, he constructed warriors from his memories to spar with him. Among them, there are not only boss opponents from the Dragon Ball world, but also characters from other worlds. Although this kind of mental training method is different from actual combat in the real world, the effect is still very good. In order to improve combat experience, in order to prepare yourself for various possibilities. And Lin Chuan could clearly feel that his strength had improved to a certain extent after each meditation. The Z warriors were all geniuses. In the early days, Krillin and Piccolo were both great people. These training methods were just not valued later. Lin Chuan found it very useful. Time passed bit by bit. Just after Lin Chuan meditated and defeated several enemies. Outside, a tall maid with a mature aura walked up to the rooftop and came to him. Lin Chuan, who had just finished the meditation battle, sensed someone approaching and suddenly opened his eyes, just in time to look at the maid in front of him. Lin Chuan looked at the maid up and down. He had seen this woman before and she was pretty, but he had never been in contact with her, let alone spoken to her. "Hello, Mr. Lin Chuan, Miss Bulma asked me to inform you that I hope you can come to the research room. They said that the research has made initial progress and needs your help." After the maid informed her of her intention, after Lin Chuan nodded, he retreated. Unexpectedly, research has made breakthrough progress in such a short period of time. Moreover, do you still need his help? The spaceship had a clue, but what was missing that he needed to find? Or is it that the gravity training room has achieved certain results? I wonder what breakthrough Bulma has made. After thinking for a moment, Lin Chuan decided to go take a look first. After all, it's useless to think so much. Once you see it with your own eyes, the truth becomes clear. Leaving the rooftop on the second floor, Lin Chuan jumped up and flew towards the distance. Bulma's aura is in the research room to the south, and it is certain that Breve is also there. After a few days, Lin Chuan would occasionally take a look. Looking from the air, he could see that special metal shelves were being built beside the building of the huge research institute, which seemed to be for the purpose of manufacturing something. Prepare. Falling from the sky, Lin Chuan landed outside the research institute and carefully examined the 20-meter-high metal steel frame. If nothing else, this should be set up to build spaceships, right? Otherwise, Lin Chuan would never have imagined that such a huge thing would need such a large metal frame to support it. Bulma will build a large spaceship if she doesn't build it yet. Once built, she will build it. For boring space voyages, the larger the spaceship, the more you can relax your mood through activities between areas, and there are more things you can do. Unlike a small spaceship, it can only stay in a fixed place, and even stretching its body is difficult to do. For example, Frieza's Legion's one-man spaceship can only spend a long time sitting in the cabin and sleeping. Lin Chuan is looking forward to it. What will it look like after the spaceship is actually built? Turning around, Lin Chuan entered the research institute. Because he had been here several times and was familiar with the road, the guard robot did not stop Lin Chuan after confirming his identity. Go inside. It is an extremely huge internal space. At a glance, countless mechanical equipment are in operation, which is particularly shocking. Just like a super high-tech factory, many of the machines are assisted by artificial intelligence robots. Looking towards the corner of the research institute, Lin Chuan saw Bulma working seriously. She was controlling a computer, assisted by Breve, who was holding a tablet in her hand and seemed to be checking data. As Bulma entered information into the computer, the large square metal block at the front made a roaring sound. Countless circuits, combined with the transmission of information and the delivery of sufficient energy, completely activated this huge block of unknown origin. Strolling over to Bulma and Breve, Lin Chuan did not interrupt them, but relied on his knowledge to guess what they were doing. There is no doubt that the huge metal cube in front of you is the research result of Bulma and Breve. If they want him to help, I'm afraid it has something to do with this. Otherwise, Lin Chuan couldn't think of anything else, and he didn't see anything new here. Could this be? After thinking about it, I looked carefully and saw that there was a metal door opening directly in front of the large metal block. The internal space was empty, and I could see what it looked like inside. Gravity training room. There is no other possible explanation. Otherwise, what's the point of building such a metal room? Why didn't you say anything when you came? After completing the last important step, Bulma reached out to wipe the sweat from her forehead and breathed a sigh of relief. Then she turned her attention to Lin Chuan and stood up. Said something. It wasn't that she was slow, but that she was focused on research and didn't expect Lin Chuan to arrive so quickly, nor was she distracted. Breve also relaxed, put down the tablet in his hand and lit a cigarette for himself. Fortunately, the last step did not fail, otherwise your trip would have been in vain. However, it is up to you to test it. Only then can we determine whether it was successful. After saying that, Breve took a hard puff to relax his tense nerves. Those who engage in scientific research need something to keep their spirits up at critical moments. Cigarettes are one of the most effective ones, not only refreshing but also relaxing. In the original work, Bulma also became addicted to smoking because of scientific research. I later quit smoking twice, once when I was pregnant with Trunks, but I didn't quit completely this time. It was only when I got pregnant with Bra that I quit smoking completely. Of course, it is unknown whether it was successful because of Weiss's help at that time. In the Super Era, regarding the relationship between Bulma and the Angel Weiss, a trivial matter such as quitting smoking should not be a problem for the almost omnipotent Angel. His eyes followed Bulma's movements, and Lin Chuan was slightly stunned when he saw Bulma also picking up the pack of women's cigarettes on the table. Unexpectedly, Bulma at this time would already have the cigarette in her hand. Looking at the full cigarette butts in the ashtray on the table, Lin Chuan was sure that Bulma's addiction to smoking was already considerable. Not to say it's annoying, but this thing is really not a good thing for Bulma. Although it can play a role in refreshing and relaxing the body and mind, if you are too addicted to smoking, it will do more harm. Lin Chuan instinctively grabbed the pack of cigarettes and then crushed it into a ball, causing Bulma to glare. After finally completing the last steps, I was about to smoke a cigarette to calm my nervousness. What was going on? It doesn't suit you for a beautiful woman like you to smoke like a chain smoker. It's better to touch less of this stuff in the future. There are many ways to refresh yourself and relax. Smoking is the most undesirable. You are so smart, you should understand this. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Chuan directly threw the crumpled female cigarette into the trash can. After hearing these words and seeing this kind of operation, Bulma almost lost her temper. You are not my boyfriend, why do you care so much? The expression on his face was just short of 4 words, none of your business. Just as he was about to get angry, Brief stood in the middle and said something, thus extinguishing Bulma's anger. It probably means that as his daughter, Bulma is top-notch in terms of both brains and appearance. But for such an old person, if you don't learn from the good ones, you will learn from the bad ones, and you will have more and more bad habits. Finally, he said something heart-wrenching. What it probably means is that Bulma has not achieved much except wasting her youth on Yamcha for so many years. Instead, she quit smoking and drinking to relieve her sorrow. As a result, her sorrow did not go away, and her addiction became more and more serious. In the past, Breve would have turned a blind eye to Bulma and ignored her. After all, his daughter is older and he doesn't need to worry too much. Now that Lin Chuan has arrived, it can be said that a lot has changed, so Breve decided to help his daughter make some changes. If Yamcha is gone, it's gone. The past will always pass, and the new future will always come. Lin Chuan is obviously better. He also felt that his daughter should be interested in Lin Chuan, otherwise she would not be able to take her in and live at home without looking up. The key is that my daughter agreed to help repair and build the spaceship, and by the way, she also took over the construction of the gravity training room. Even though he knew that his daughter aspired to achieve higher achievements in the field of scientific research, for this reason, his daughter obviously wanted to help Lin Chuan. Bulma would not know that her father had completely misunderstood her. Although she is very satisfied with Lin Chuan's appearance and body shape, and Lin Chuan is extremely powerful, she is not the kind of woman who will change her mind casually. Especially since the last relationship ended so hastily, neither she nor Yamcha could fully talk about it. No matter how satisfied she was with Lin Chuan, she would not take the initiative to get involved. The awkward atmosphere lasted for a long time. Breve knew that he had inadvertently touched Bulma's sore spot, so he simply hid aside and stopped talking. In the end, Lin Chuan took the initiative to change the topic. After understanding that this was the gravity training room created by Bulma, he spoke. So, this is the gravity training room you created. Of course, why else would I ask you to come here? It is for your needs that my father and I will spend some free time to conduct research in this area after studying spaceships every day. Bulma crossed his arms on his chest next, he said with a proud look on his face. The eyes that looked straight at Lin Chuan seemed to say, praise me quickly. Her mentality changed very quickly. Perhaps as time went by, Bulma also took the initiative to let go of the knots in her past. Of course, that's what it looks like on the surface, but Lin Chuan can't tell what's going on in his heart. Breve was visibly relieved when he saw this. He was really afraid of Bulma yelling at him. He knew exactly what his daughter's temper was. Anyway, his father can't be restrained. He also talked to his wife more than once, saying that if Bulma's temper was gentler, they would have had a grandchild long ago. Are there many people pursuing Bulma? I am very sure of that. You can even walk around Exodus. But it was because of Yamcha that Bulma was delayed until now. The more the Bulivs looked at Lin Chuan, the more they liked it. Because with Lin Chuan's arrival, at least they no longer had Yamcha's entanglement. Not only could their daughter be in contact with other men, but in the past 10 days, Bulma no longer opened her mouth. What about the tea? How about Yamu tea? On the contrary, he devoted himself wholeheartedly to research, and the most mentioned name was Lin Chuan. Your ingenuity indeed exceeded my expectations. In just a few days, you not only succeeded in researching it, but also created an entity. I just don't know how effective the gravity training room you built is. In other words, how many times the gravity of the Earth can it reach? Lin Chuan asked. After hearing the compliment, Bulma's arrogant demeanor became more obvious, but Lin Chuan asked the most important point again, so she quickly straightened her expression. After all, business is business, so he immediately answered. At present, we have only made some preliminary breakthroughs in gravity research, and the materials are limited, so you still need to test the 1.0 beta version of this gravity training room to confirm how many times the gravity of the Earth can be achieved. After the words fell, Lin Chuan roughly understood what Bulma meant. Emotions are just a test product, and the multiples that can be achieved should not be very high. I see, that's why you called me to help at this time. In that case, let me go in and test it myself. Lin Chuan nodded and walked towards the door of the gravity room without hesitation. Seeing Lin Chuan being so direct, Bulma and Breve didn't hesitate. After some introduction and explanation, Lin Chuan roughly understood the internal structure and operation methods. Then, the door to the gravity training room was closed. Lin Chuan, you have to remember that if something unexpected happens, you must tell me immediately. I will directly interrupt the energy transmission outside. In addition, because the internal space is completely isolated from the external space, there is still a problem in the supply of oxygen, and you may have difficulty breathing. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot, the last time you made a wish, you got the ability to survive in any harsh environment, especially in the vacuum universe. Although I don't know how powerful this ability is, you can survive in the universe. Then a mere oxygen-free environment shouldn't be a big problem for you in a short period of time. As Bulma's voice came and surrounded the small space, Lin Chuan raised his head and looked at the speaker in the corner. Don't worry, although the abilities given by the Earth's Shenlong are not so heaven-defying, and they can only survive in some not outrageous environments, the Shenlong has indeed made it possible for me to survive in the universe, so the absence of oxygen will not cause me any harm. Influence, Lin Chuan replied. After that, he stepped up to the center console. Without saying anything, he pressed the button of the switch. Buzz buzz. Single quote. With the activation of gravity, even the initial 2 times the Earth's gravity makes the originally white and bright space around it darken. The pressure is too strong, the gravity doubles, and the environment will naturally be different from before. Lin Chuan could also clearly feel that his body had become much heavier. Not only that, the pressure on his body had increased several times. We're starting to add more force now. Take notes, Bulma. Lin Chuan glanced at the camera and pressed the gravity plus button with his hand. Click once to double the gravity. From 2 times to 5 times, from 5 times to 10 times, and then more than 10 times. It has to be said that although more than 20 years have passed, Lin Chuan still remembers the feeling that planet Vegeta with 10 times the gravity level gave him. Later, the gravity of planet V3114 dropped significantly, so he could adapt so quickly. However, although planet V3114 is not as strong as planet Vegeta, its gravity is about 2 or 3 times that of Earth. Sure enough, for me, a force of 10 or 20 times gravity won't have much effect. There will indeed be pressure, but this pressure will be absorbed quickly, and then you will feel nothing at all. Of course, the results will be better if you practice in this stressful environment for a long time than practicing under the gravity of the Earth. With just such a small amount of gravity, the increase for Lin Chuan will not be much. After all, the strength is here, with nearly 1,000,000 combat power, even in an environment with 100 times gravity, Lin Chuan is sure to adapt quickly. At the very least, it would have to be 100 times the gravity to allow him to quickly improve his strength in daily training. I remember the information in the original work. In the battle with Vegeta, Sun Wukong, who regained his strength after being seriously injured, should have increased his combat power to 20,000 to 30,000 points. On the way to planet Namek, he used gravity training to force his body to become stronger, and then used Senbeans to heal his body and continued to practice again, thereby eliminating several bugs that caused Saiyans to recover from serious injuries and greatly increase their strength. In 6 days, he not only adapted to 100 times gravity, but his combat power also increased to 90,000 points. In other words, if the combat power reaches about 100,000 points, it can adapt to 100 times gravity. It can be done with 100,000 combat power, so it is naturally trivial to have 1,000,000 combat power to adapt to 100 times gravity. Then, according to Vegeta's millions of combat power points in the subsequent plot, he will practice in 300 times the gravity of the Earth. The situation at that time was still fresh in Lin Chuan's memory, which showed that 1,000,000 points of combat power could be practiced under at least 200 to 300 times the gravity of the Earth, and the effect would not be bad. More than 20 times, can it continue to rise? All data and equipment are operating normally. Strange, according to my original calculations, the current beta version of the Gravity Training Room 1.0 should be able to exert at most about 20 times the Earth's gravity. Watching the surveillance video, Lin Chuan had increased the gravity to 25 times, and doubled it every 10 seconds, Bulma frowned. Based on the current situation, we have all misjudged the limits that the equipment can reach. The processor, operation capacity, and equipment power have only reached about 65% of full load, and then calculated based on the amount of reserved energy, the gravity multiplier can be even higher. On Brive's tablet, there is all the data of the gravity equipment. Based on his experience, he directly confirmed that the limit of gravity is not 20 times, nor 30 times, but most likely 40 times. I hope there will be no accidents, Bulma said. They all underestimated this 1.0 beta version of the gravity chamber, which was pieced together with simple materials. Until the gravity exceeds 30 times, the fanaticism in their eyes becomes more obvious. Especially Briff, he is constantly thinking and using existing data to make bold conjectures. On the side, Bulma started to worry about Lin Chuan after being excited. It should be noted that gravity pressure is completely different from weight-bearing pressure. No matter how unimaginable weight-bearing training a martial artist performs, it is only weight-bearing, the weight of external pressure. Gravity is different. It is exerted directly on all directions, causing every cell in the body to bear pressure. For example, Lin Chuan currently weighs 85 kilograms, but under 30 times gravity, his body will feel more than 2,550 kilograms. This is only the surface pressure, the inside is even more terrifying. Even if the body's muscles and bones can bear it, what about the internal organs and muscles? Of course, Bulma wouldn't know that when one's strength reaches a certain level, the body will continue to transform and become stronger. The internal organs will also be strengthened like the body under the baptism of energy. There's actually no reaction at all. Can you continue to increase the force when the gravity exceeds 30 times? Originally, she wanted to stop Lin Chuan from continuing to operate, but when she saw the calm Lin Chuan through the surveillance camera, Bulma's mouth twitched. She was worried for nothing. His strength once again exceeded her imagination. It's just more than 30 times the gravity, and it can't have any impact on me. There may be things I haven't told you so you don't know. To put it simply, with my current strength, it is not a problem to adapt to 100 times gravity in a short period of time. Unless it's hundreds of times gravity, I can't take it seriously. To be honest, although it is a bit exaggerated and overconfident, Lin Chuan can indeed do it. You Saiyans are all freaks. Bulma couldn't help but rolled her eyes and complained after hearing this. What's that word? He can easily adapt to 100 times gravity, but only a few hundred times gravity can make him take it seriously. You know, even if it is only a few times the gravity of the Earth, if an ordinary person were to stand in it, he would be pressed to the point of being unable to move in a short period of 10 seconds, and his body functions would quickly collapse. If she entered it, she would be in an environment with 2 or 3 times the gravity at most, and she would soon feel uncomfortable. Time passes minute by minute. When Lin Chuan adjusted the gravity to a point of 50 times, something abnormal appeared in the gravity training room. After a short period of more than 10 seconds, an alarm appeared, and the gravity began to decline rapidly, finally returning to the level of Earth's gravity. 50 times the limit. After reaching this number, it cannot rise any further, and it is maintained for too short a time. It is obviously overloaded. Equivalent to 49 times, it can be maintained for a while, but after reaching a certain limit, the line equipment will be burned due to overpower operation and stop operating. Of course, even if it is broken, the gravity training room can still be considered a success. It should be noted that this was independently researched by the people on Earth with the help of their own scientific research power. With a 50 times gravity training room, will 100 times be far behind? 1,000 times sooner or later. Although he only felt the effects of gravity for a short time, Lin Chuan has clearly felt the benefits that gravity cultivation will bring to him. Indeed, even practicing under 50 times gravity can only give him a slight sense of heaviness. But as long as the multiplier is increased to 100 times, it can at least be regarded as the best way to practice at the moment. That's it for today. Tomorrow all the materials I ordered will be delivered one after another. I believe that within a few days, we can create a gravity training room that can maintain 100 times the Earth's gravity for a long time. After finishing the day's research and saving all the data, Bulma spoke. If possible, it is best to expand the internal space, otherwise it will be too small and cannot be used. There is also the problem of internal oxygen supply. If it is not solved, the gravity training room can only be used by myself. Lin Chuan suggested. The 1.0 beta version is too small, just a small house with an internal space of 5 meters long and wide and less than 2 or 3 meters high. There are many other minor issues as well. However, Lin Chuan believed that Bulma could be solved. Hearing this, Bulma nodded, her mind spinning rapidly. On the side, Briff had a flash of inspiration, thought of something, and said, "It is possible to use the internal structure of the spaceship in the gravity training room. Or, we can simply build a large spaceship that can control the internal gravity." Boat, isn't this enough? Suddenly, not only Bulma showed a look of surprise, but also Lin Chuan became excited. Brive is indeed Brive. The original work is that Sun Wukong asked for a device to control gravity in the spaceship. Now he can think of it without Sun Wukong's reminder. Dad, you are really a genius. Then starting from tomorrow, while building the spaceship, we will find a way to install gravity equipment on the spaceship. We already have clear drawings of the spacecraft's appearance modeling and internal structure. When the time comes, the construction of the fuselage and internal polishing will be left to you, Dad. The main engine thrusters, as well as the gravity equipment and oxygen production equipment, I can do it alone. Bulma's arrangement was concise and clear. The father and daughter reached a consensus and walked out of the institute while speaking words that only they could understand. Lin Chuan became the heir at this time, because he really didn't understand anything. Return to the big round house where I lived. Just when Lin Chuan was thinking a lot, thinking that after the spaceship was built, he could go to the planet Namek, suddenly something strange came from his body, which stunned Lin Chuan. Host, Lin Chuan. Age, 25. Height, 185 cm. Weight, 85 kg. Combat Power Index, 1,025 points. The current level of the system, Level 1. Automatically hanging up. Combat power +1 per second. Looking at his own combat attributes, Lin Chuan could not suppress the excitement on his face. Is this the realm of strength that exceeds 1,000,000 level combat power? Compared with the previous strength and now, even if the difference is only 10,000 combat power, it is as huge as a chasm and abyss at this time. For a moment, Lin Chuan couldn't hold back because of the feeling of sudden increase in strength coming from his body, and he used Wukong technique to fly straight into the sky. Break through the atmosphere and leave the Earth. And, heading straight towards the moon. Lin Chuan's speed has already reached hundreds of times the speed of sound. Under rapid speed, 100 kilometers per second is no problem. While traveling in the universe, even if there were meteorites blocking his way, Lin Chuan would directly smash them to pieces using powerful means. There is quite a feeling of destroying all obstacles. In just half an hour, Lin Chuan crossed the distance between the moon and the Earth and arrived on the moon. Such a speed is so terrifying that even with the naked eye, let alone the naked eye, it is difficult to catch up. Although the distance between the moon and the Earth in the Dragon Ball world is not as far as the 384,403.9 kilometers in his previous world, it is still 200,000 kilometers away. Standing on the bumpy surface of the moon. Frankly, it's incredible. Never thought that one day I would be able to stand on the moon like this. Before, he had thought that this moon was also troubled. It had been shattered by Kame Sennin in the past, and was finally repaired by the gods. It was then completely shattered by Piccolo a few years later. Speaking of which, Lin Chuan had always been curious about why the moon in the Dragon Ball world had almost zero impact on the Earth after it disappeared. After all, as the only satellite of the Earth, the moon's gravitational influence on the Earth's tides cannot be ignored. Even if this world is the Dragon Ball world, I believe it will be the same. If the moon were gone, the Earth's tidal phenomena would definitely change significantly. Otherwise, God will not use his authority to repair the moon later. It is conceivable that natural disasters are inevitable. Without the traction of the moon, the Earth's crustal movement will also change, and the entire ecological balance will be broken. Equivalently, destroying the moon is the same as destroying the world, except that it does not directly destroy it, but turns on the chronic self-destruction switch. No matter what, the moon in the Dragon Ball world has no impact on the Earth. Lin Chuan would rather believe that it is because of the existence of the god Piccolo, which ensures that the Earth is not greatly affected. The reason why God Piccolo stopped trying to repair the existence of the moon later was probably because he knew that the key to a Saiyan's transformation was the moon. Forget it, why are you thinking so much? To me, it doesn't matter what it is. Coming here, I can have a good explosion. Use your full strength for the first time in a long time. Lin Chuan said to himself. Because of the ability given by Shenron, Lin Chuan can speak naturally here. I came to the moon to explode everything in one breath, to truly feel how powerful I am now. After all, since entering the Earth activation system, the strength has been increasing every moment. Even though it can be clearly felt, it has never been truly released. Now that the combat power has reached 1 million points, this kind of strength difference that spans a huge realm makes him want to know how strong his current strength is. Although it is not as good as Frieza after his transformation, but with more than 1 million points, he has really entered a new realm. Lin Chuan could finally imagine why Frieza in the original work said that as soon as he transformed, Warrior Z would face an absolutely terrifying version of himself. Combat power of hundreds of thousands and combat power of more than 1 million points cannot be compared on the same plane at all. Looking at the Earth glowing with azure light, I finally concentrated all my energy. Drink. Single quote. A muffled shout came from Lin Chuan's mouth. In an instant, an invisible coercion expanded rapidly, covering the entire moon in a short period of time. The energy continued to sublimate and surge. The simple coercive momentum caused the moon to tremble, and even caused countless meteorite fragments and moon rocks to move around it. The closer ones were directly levitated away from the lunar surface due to pressure, and then most of them exploded into powder and ash. Those farther away are constantly beating around the aura, constantly colliding with each other in space. Lin Chuan naturally didn't care about this. He kept his legs firmly planted and continued to guide the energy in his body and spread it throughout his body. Then, a snow-white halo emitted from the surface of the body. 1% strength, 30% strength, 70% strength, in the end, it reached 99%. The deep shout was like venting. The next second, the aura exploded and turned into a cyclone covering the whole body, burning like snow-white flames, which was particularly conspicuous. At the same time, because the energy burst had completely stabilized, the moon also stopped shaking, and the rock fragments suspended in the air fell down. Lin Chuan narrowed his eyes slightly. The body slowly levitated, leaving the lunar surface, and turned to find the nearest and extremely huge meteorite. Boom! There was an explosion in space. This is not the transmission of sound, but the agitation caused by spatial fluctuations. A punch out of thin air, 100 meters away. The invisible air fist was like a shock wave, hitting the meteorite several thousand meters in diameter. Pound. Single quote. In just an instant, due to the bombardment of terrifying power, the meteorite instantly turned into fragments and scattered in all directions. Just like this, it is still impossible to clearly define the current level of strength. For Lin Chuan, the most important thing is the lack of opponents. Without an opponent, even if you know you are strong, you still don't know what level you have reached. It can be said that Lin Chuan now feels extremely eager to fight. He longed for the plot to develop quickly so that he could face Frieza one day earlier. After all, in this era, Frieza is his first goal and the one he must surpass in the short term. In the end, I have to use the clone as my opponent, Lin Chuan said to himself, using his methods. Doppelganger. This is naturally a skill developed on planet V3114. I also learned it from the Z Warrior in the original work. It's just that for the Z Warriors, it's a 4-body boxing, but for Lin Chuan, it's just a clone technique. In comparison, it shouldn't be much different from Piccolo's demon clone. Over the years, this has been Lin Chuan's only way to relieve boredom and loneliness. Again, this is one way to provide your own combat experience. Casting the clone technique. In just a moment, a figure separated from Lin Chuan's body. Regardless of their appearance, clothing, or strength, they are almost exactly the same. Not bad. As my strength increases, just a clone will not weaken my power much. And as a clone, you also have the strength to burst into 1,000,000 points of combat power in a short period of time. After evaluating the clone, Lin Chuan carefully felt the loss of power. It can be ignored. In the past, when his combat power was only 15,000 points, after he used the clone technique, his own strength would drop by about 20%, and he could only create 4 clones at most. Looking at it now, if he now splits into 4 clones, even if his own strength will decline, it will not drop as much as before. Isn't this natural? The clone technique is not an equal distribution, not to mention that you haven't allocated much power to me. If I fight with all my strength with the power I currently have, it can only last for a minute or 2 at most. The clone Lin Chuan said. Hearing this, Lin Chuan smiled. It should be said that while the strength has improved, the control of skills has also reached a more subtle level. This kind of invisible improvement is really exciting. Let's test the strength first. Here I come. The main body. With a loud shout, the clone Lin Chuan took action directly. Indeed, there is no need to continue to lament, because they are the same person. Seeing the clone coming, Lin Chuan's lips curved into a smile. What is needed is a short burst of energy and an all-out battle. Lin Chuan luckily punched, and in just an instant, he collided with the clone's fist. Pound. A shock. The next second, a fierce battle is about to break out. An all-out battle involving millions of troops takes place in the universe. You can imagine how intense it is. The two figures kept flying, flashing, fighting, and colliding in the cosmic space. The speed is so fast that it cannot be seen clearly with the naked eye. It is so powerful that just a simple swing of its fists and feet can shatter the surrounding meteorites. If such power were unleashed on the Earth, it would at least subvert everything within 1,000 miles. During the battle, he became familiar with his own strength and accepted the pressure brought by his avatar in the most positive way. This makes his strength more refined and his understanding of combat better. The self is constantly transforming, becoming stronger with the help of the clone. When the battle is over, the clone returns to the body and can bring more insights to itself. Pound, boom, boom, bang, single quote comma. There are continuous explosions in the universe. In addition to close combat, there are also energy attacks. After the battle lasted for more than a minute, the clone clearly felt the loss of energy, and finally opened his hands wide, one final blow. Energy evaporates, and chi continuously gathers and concentrates. Gather all the remaining power together and launch the final killing move. Thunder Crush Cannon. The blue and gold shock cannons shot out directly, bringing with it the power of thunder, like an extremely huge thunder dragon, roaring with its teeth and claws. It was so powerful that it shattered countless stars along the way. If this blow hits the Earth, it will undoubtedly destroy everything. Facing the ultimate move released by the clone, Lin Chuan was already prepared, and an extremely rich and frightening red light was already condensed in his hand. Scarlet Penetrating Wave. A gleam flashed in his eyes. Finding the best opportunity, Lin Chuan raised his hand to blast out the energy. Scarlet Penetrating Wave. This move was originally inspired by the combination of the demonic light killing cannon and Frieza's death ray. It is the ultimate move that Lin Chuan has been researching for the longest time, and it can be ranked in Lin Chuan's top 3. Boom. Single quote. A huge explosion exploded in the universe. No matter how powerful it is, the dazzling light can already be compared to an extremely bright luminous body. Here, the strength test between Lin Chuan and his clone reached the final stage. At this moment, the other side, in the underworld, on the snake path that is more than 1,000,000 kilometers long, Sun Wukong and Raditz are running on the snake path. For them, during the 10 days after arriving in the underworld, except for the necessary daily sleep and eating, they never stopped. In terms of speed, it's not too slow, but it's not too fast either. You said it's understandable that Sun Wukong doesn't fly, because he's not proficient in Wukong. But why doesn't Raditz fly? Because flying for a long time not only consumes more power than running, but also the speed of flying is not much faster than the speed of running. Kakarot, your speed is really too slow. At your speed, I'm afraid it won't take you a year to reach the end to see the King of Kai. With a stupid brother like you holding him back, even my elder brother's progress has been slowed down at least twice. While Raditz ran faster, he did not forget to taunt Sun Wukong who was following him. These days, they are constantly competing and moving forward. In fact, there has been a good run in emotionally and there has been some progress in communication. But Raditz is a tough-talking person, and only in this way can he find the strange sense of superiority he had in the past. Because of Raditz's strength, Sun Wukong was thrown away a long distance in one breath. Sun Wukong naturally refuses to admit defeat, even if his elder brother's words are harsh, but there is comparison and motivation. Raditz gave Sun Wukong the greatest encouragement, and also allowed Sun Wukong to unleash his own potential, and his strength improved by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. It won't surpass his big brother, but it did exceed 1,000 points of combat power a few days ago. Raditz carries a combat power detector, so he can know this. Don't look down on me. This is just the beginning. Gritting his teeth, Sun Wukong seemed to have made another breakthrough in his realm. The burst of speed in a short period of time allowed him to catch up with Raditz, and even had a faint tendency to surpass him. HMPH, you still have some backbone. You can catch up with me. Speaking of your indomitable spirit, it reminds me of our father. As he said that, the smile on Raditz's face changed. But, I don't intend to give you another chance, this time I will get rid of you in one breath. The next second, Raditz increased his speed again. The gap was widened again, and Sun Wukong was annoyed, but he did not give up. If he catches up, the gap will not widen so quickly, at least not to the point where Raditz's back cannot be seen. But if he really slows down, he will really fall behind. In Sun Wukong's dictionary, the word, give up, does not exist. This is also his belief that his strength will continue to improve along the way. The Snake Road became a perfect venue for competition between the two brothers. The two of you chase each other. Accidents often happen at the most relaxing moments. Just when Raditz looked back at Sun Wukong, who was lagging behind, and was about to continue stimulating, he suddenly felt his feet empty. When he came back to his senses, at this section, the snake path suddenly turned at a large angle, and he rushed out too fast. It doesn't matter, he can fly. But, stop it quickly, Kakarot, he shouted sharply, but it was already too late. Sun Wukong, who was running at full speed, rushed out of the snake path just like Raditz, and crashed into Raditz. The two of them just fell into the underworld one after another. Chapter 51. The trajectory of fate is often unpredictable. Even if Lin Chuan, the butterfly, changes, even if Raditz follows Sun Wukong and runs the snake path. But in the end, something like falling into the snake path happened. Screen transition. In the universe, in the sea of stars between the moon and the earth. The wave is over. The terrifying destructive power produced by the explosion set off an extremely huge shock wave, sweeping and engulfing everything. If it weren't for being thousands of kilometers away from the moon during the battle, even the battle would have avoided the moon intentionally or unintentionally. Otherwise, the power of the aftermath of the big explosion alone could completely destroy the moon. No matter how bad it is, it can make the entire moon peel off a layer of skin. The clone's energy is exhausted and returns to the body. Although there was no increase in strength, the memory of the battle and all the thoughts during the battle appeared in his mind. This is the strength of 1,000,000 combat power. If the energy of the clone is not exhausted, I can still exert more powerful power. Lin Chuan was in a surging mood and said to himself. It has to be said that it was only at this moment that Lin Chuan realized that he could unleash world-destroying power with just a single movement of his hands. The fighting strength of 1,000,000 is so terrifying. So how powerful would a combat power of over 100 million be? Unimaginable. Just like when I only had 15,000 combat power points, even if I thought it would be terrifying to have 1,000,000 combat power points, it was just a guess and not accurate. Now, he imagines units with a combat power of 100 million, just like he imagined a combat power of millions. Even though his horizons are broad, even though he is a time traveler, he does not possess it himself, and the gap is still very far away, so how can he know it? Withdrawing his mind and calming down, Lin Chuan faced the earth again. This wave of explosion is enough. Although being in the universe will not cause too much consumption to himself, he is still ready to go back. At this moment, Lin Chuan, who was getting ready to set off, suddenly felt a special feeling coming from his body. A strange feeling, familiar yet unfamiliar. The blood in the body seemed to be stimulated by something, like boiling water. The cells in the body seemed to have taken stimulants and began to lose control. This feeling, Lin Chuan was shocked and frowned. This feeling is unmistakable, it is a precursor to giant ape transformation. It was an area that he had not touched for many years. The next second, Lin Chuan turned around and faced the moon 1,000 kilometers away. Because of the sunlight, his angular position happened to receive more than 17 million Boolean rays of light reflected from the moon. The moonlight shines on the body, and after being stimulated, the tail twists uncontrollably and instinctively. It's really careless. However, since I haven't transformed into a giant ape in so many years, it may not be a bad thing to passively transform into a giant ape this time. After Lin Chuan muttered in his mouth, with a thought in his mind, he quickly used his mental power to stabilize his mind so as not to be swallowed by the wild nature. The dazzling moonlight became brighter and brighter, irritating his eyes, causing Lin Chuan to subconsciously close his eyes. The blood flow in the body continued to accelerate. The beating speed of the heart doubled, the body began to expand, and black hair grew on the surface of Lin Chuan's body. Transforming from human form to animal form, his strength also continues to increase. Size: 3 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. More than 100 meters. Combat power: 1.5 million points, 0.2 million points, 0.4 million points, 0.7 million points, until the end, more than 10 million points. In just 1 minute, Lin Chuan's figure no longer existed. Standing in the starry sky is a huge black creature. Ooh! Single quote. A beast roar sounded, seeming to declare his arrival. In the vacuum environment of the universe, sound cannot be transmitted, but a roar similar to sound can be transmitted through the vibration of the universe. Transformed into the form of a giant ape, Lin Chuan did not go berserk. Originally, as a lower-level warrior, he could not maintain his sanity when transforming into a giant ape. The most important thing is that there is no way to control it in his inherited memory, and there is no one to lead the way for him. The reason why he can now control his reason is that Lin Chuan achieved great achievements in the field of mental power through unremitting training on planet V3114. In fact, it is quite simple. Whether you can control reason and defeat wildness is directly related to the strength of your own strength. Feeling the extraordinary surging energy brought by the transformation of the giant ape, the blood-red eyes of the giant ape Lin Chuan were full of fiery meaning. A tenfold increase. Now my combat power has exceeded 10 million points. Excited and excited. He had only felt the power of 1,000,000 level combat power before, but now it was at a level of tens of millions, making it even more difficult for him to conceal his desire for powerful power. Whether it is physical strength or strength, all aspects have experienced a qualitative leap. Although the giant ape transformation is not as good as the Super Saiyan transformation, at this stage, it is an absolute ace-killer move. Even Frieza, who has tens of millions of levels of combat power, can only resist it after his final transformation. By the way, if I still can't break through and transform into a Super Saiyan after 1 year, giant ape transformation will be my only hope. Without any other changes, just relying on the power of the system, with more than 30 million combat power a year later, how could it be possible to defeat Frieza if that was all? Therefore, if you really can't transform by then use the giant ape transformation. 10 times the strength of the wild, even if it cannot perform to its true level, it is definitely stronger than Frieza's 120 million points. Of course, Lin Chuan doesn't think he is such a loser. Even if you still can't figure out the Super Saiyan transformation, improving your combat power is inevitable. You said, there is no spiritual time room. Lin Chuan has made a decision, at least for now, he will not touch it. In other words, we have to wait until the system level is upgraded. It is true that the space of the spiritual time house can be broken and then returned. But if you want to break through, you need at least a combat power of hundreds of billions or more, or even trillions of units. The original Fat Majin Buu has a combat power of more than 600 billion, and Big Buu is much stronger. By the way, if I still can't transform by then, should I just kill Frieza while he hasn't transformed yet? Lin Chuan couldn't help but laugh weirdly after saying this. Although it is not about martial ethics, it is indeed safe. However, if you kill Frieza, you won't be strong enough, and you will still have to face Frieza's father, the Kurdish king. There's even Frieza's eldest brother, Eula. I just don't know if Eula exists in the Dragon Ball world he lives in. There are too many parallel time and spaces in the Dragon Ball world, and each parallel time and space has its own different development. In the main storyline of Dragon Ball, Eula does not appear, but that does not mean that he does not exist. Maybe Eula in the main timeline was killed for other reasons, and maybe he no longer exists. As for this world of time and space, Lin Chuan could only analyze it based on everything he knew. Lots of ideas. As he thought more and more deeply, Lin Chuan had already controlled his huge body to sit on an extremely huge meteorite. If others saw his appearance at this time, they would definitely be shocked. Because such a large giant ape not only lives in the universe, but also changes its sitting position from time to time and even makes various humanized movements. Wait, Super Saiyan, giant ape transformation. Suddenly he thought of something, and an idea flashed in Lin Chuan's mind. As a hardcore Dragon Ball fan in my previous life, I knew the plot of the Dragon Ball world very well. It's just that after more than 20 years of apocalyptic life, many of his memories have been sealed away. At this time, after in-depth imagination of certain points, he quickly remembered some aspects that he had not thought about in the past. Especially those plots in parallel time and space that are not the main line of time and space. For example, in the time and space world of Dragon Ball GT Gaiden, there are advanced methods for giant ape transformation and Super Saiyan bloodline evolution. If you can maintain your sanity while transforming into a giant ape, and have a certain strength to transform into a golden giant ape, then there is hope that you can transform into the 4th level Super Saiyan. Man Ape Super 4. I think that when he was on planet V3114, he just wanted to try this transformation method, so he tried his best to overcome the wildness of the giant ape and stay sane. In the past, it did fail. However, previous failures were most likely due to lack of own strength. It does not mean that it will still fail now or in the future. As his strength continues to improve. At this moment, his combat power reaches 1 million, and his giant ape form reaches tens of millions. This time, maybe it's an opportunity. By coincidence, I entered the giant ape state, and I just took this opportunity to understand how to transform from an ordinary giant ape to a golden giant ape. After all, the golden giant ape is the most critical step in transforming into Super 4. If he succeeds, then he will be truly invincible in this era. Of course, even if you are unsuccessful, you can gain a new understanding based on your current strength. Regarding the direction to take in the future, some detours can also be eliminated. With a decision in his mind, Lin Chuan immediately controlled his huge body to fly towards the moon. It's too far to go back to Earth. Since the giant ape transformation is taking place here, we might as well go back to the moon to gain insights. Landing on the moon's surface again, it was too big and caused quite a stir this time. Lin Chuan didn't think too much. He randomly found a stable position and sat cross-legged on the ground, and began to understand the form of the giant ape. Entering meditation in the form of a giant ape. Lin Chuan entered his own spiritual world. Different from the spiritual world when meditating in the human form, the spiritual world entered in the giant ape form is a bloody world. On the dark earth, a blood moon hung in the sky, extremely huge. Blood filled the air, murderous intent surged, and the aura of beastliness filled the entire world. There is no doubt that these are the cruelties and bloodthirsty engraved in the bones of the giant ape. However, Lin Chuan will not be affected, because he has already seen this spiritual world. It was when he woke up from this spiritual world that he fully controlled his reason. Time passes minute by minute. Even Lin Chuan himself didn't know how long he had been on the moon. It wasn't until something strange happened to his body that he finally woke up from his meditation. There is no doubt that the time for giant ape transformation has come. Even if there is always moonlight shining on it, if it cannot reach 17 million Boolean waves, it will not be able to maintain its existence as a giant ape. It is inevitable that the form will automatically be lifted. Speaking of which, if Lin Chuan hadn't come to the moon, the time to maintain the giant ape transformation might have been even shorter. The moon is always moving, so the intensity of reflected light will also change. Lin Chuan felt somewhat lost when he returned to his human form, because he is still confused about the golden giant ape. In the end, I can only conclude that it is probably as difficult to transform from an ordinary giant ape form into a golden giant ape as it is to transform into a Super Saiyan from Lin Chuan's human form. However, although the realization failed, this time's transformation into a giant ape seems to have tapped out a lot of my potential. Lin Chuan quickly came out of the disappointed mood and said to himself, "Some things cannot be forced. The more urgent it is, the more likely it is to go too far." Shifting his attention, he opened the system panel and saw that the combat power index at this time had reached 1.15 million points. This time, after coincidentally transforming into a giant ape, he actually increased his combat power by nearly 150,000. Even though his own combat power exceeded 1 million points, it felt too direct to increase his combat power by hundreds of thousands in one go. If he didn't have this feeling, Lin Chuan really wouldn't look at the attribute panel in a hurry to confirm the data. Standing up, Lin Chuan put aside all the thoughts about the golden giant ape and the transformation method of the 4th level Super Saiyan. He has written down all the previous insights, and will only make new attempts in the future when he becomes stronger. At this time, Lin Chuan had new ideas and was ready to make a new attempt. Now that he has tried to get to this point, he doesn't waste any time. Even though he was naked now, Lin Chuan didn't feel ashamed. Being on the moon, no one can see what he looks like now. Let me try again. Super Saiyan breakthrough. My transformation failed in the past, maybe because of lack of strength or not enough S cells. But now, my combat power has exceeded 1 million points. With my current strength, can I do it? As my understanding deepens, the ideas in my mind become clearer and I know what I want to do next. In the original work, Sun Wukong reaches the 1st level of Super Saiyan with a power of 3 million points. Although his combat power at this time is only over 1.15 million, he is not weak anymore. At least it's much better than when I was still on planet V3114. Moreover, he clearly knows Chaoyi's transformation method. Just this is enough to make up for the gap in combat power, right? After calming down his mind, Lin Chuan clenched his fists and took a half-bent posture. Completely concentrate your own power, guide all the energy to converge towards the center of the back, and finally explode in one go. Wow! Single quote. A surging snow-white aura spurted out from Lin Chuan's body, like an erupting volcano spewing out magma. The terrifying power spread in all directions, and the entire moon trembled violently again because of this power. The aura continued to expand and become stronger, and its intensity completely overshadowed Lin Chuan's previous explosion. It even set off huge waves in the universe, each wave becoming more terrifying than the last, constantly increasing the intensity of energy condensation. Lin Chuan's forehead had bulging veins, and without any clothing to cover it, his figure looked even more ferocious and burly. Especially the thick green veins, like giant dragons clinging to Lin Chuan's body. It seemed as if his whole body would explode completely in the next second. This is all I have. No, I will risk everything to try to break through today. With a loud shout, Lin Chuan chose to completely release all his power. It was different from the previous full-force explosion. Now it is time to condense the power in the body to the limit in one breath, and then break through that bottleneck. It was precisely because of Lin Chuan's best efforts that a golden light flashed across his eyes. It was not fixed, and even Lin Chuan himself did not notice it. As time passes little by little, when the energy reaches its peak, which lasts for less than a minute, the breath begins to feel weak and begins to gradually decline. As expected, it still doesn't work. What's the problem? This attempt lasted several minutes. It still didn't succeed, so even if it continued, it wouldn't make much sense. Lin Chuan relaxed, regained and calmed the power in his body. If you fail this time, you can only continue to strengthen your own strength, or improve your realm. Just like understanding the Golden Giant Ape and Super 4, wait until later to seek breakthroughs. Don't force things, don't take things seriously, know how to proceed step by step, and know how to accumulate slowly. After 2 lifetimes, Lin Chuan in his previous life was actually a very good person. It is all thanks to his career in the doomsday industry for more than 20 years that he has completely polished his character. So what if it fails? Haven't you experienced enough in these years? So what if it doesn't work? If you don't succeed this time, just try your best to succeed next time. This is Lin Chuan's mentality. For Lin Chuan, he was not 100% sure that he would succeed this time. If you are sure that you will succeed, then failure will indeed be a huge blow. In terms of strength, it should be enough. When it comes to S cells, with my current level of strength, there will definitely be no shortage of them. Could it be said that the transformation of Super Saiyan really requires anger as a guide to complete the transformation? If that's the case, why can those Saiyans in Universe 6 complete the Super Saiyan transformation without anger? Or is it really just a lack of strength? When the Saiyans of the 6th universe appeared in the Super Era, their normal combat power level cannot be underestimated. They are too strong. After thinking about it, Lin Chuan continued to analyze the problems, differences and possibilities. Lin Chuan even used this to think of another aspect. That's the tail. Could it be that it's because of the tail? This shouldn't be possible, right? Lin Chuan lowered his head and looked at the tail behind his butt. In the setting, the Saiyans of Universe 6 are born without tails. From their own explanations later in the original work, we can learn that things like tails don't have much effect on them, so they naturally disappeared during the evolution process. Moreover, the Saiyans of Universe 6 don't even know about giant ape transformation. Other than that, there is no other difference between the Saiyans of the 6th universe and the Saiyans of the 7th universe. After thinking too much, Lin Chuan couldn't help but admire his own thinking. If this is really because of the tail, it is true that Sun Wukong completed the super transformation without a tail. Of course, the ultimate anger is certain. Later, Vegeta also seems to have broken through to Super Saiyan without a tail. Then to Sun Wuhan, Sun Wushan, Trunks. The more he thought about it, the more outrageous Lin Chuan felt. This crooked idea shocked him. He shook his head hard and threw these thoughts away. Just kidding, God's tail is the key to preventing him from successfully transforming. If the basic combat power index exceeds tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions cannot be broken through, then maybe we really have to try. For now, it's better to wait for some time to settle. Perhaps, with the improvement of strength, there will be new insights. After summarizing all the gains and insights, Lin Chuan set his sights on the earth again. There is no point in continuing to stay here. With a leap, Lin Chuan violently left the moon and rushed straight towards the earth. The speed was so fast that it once again reached hundreds of times the speed of sound, hundreds of kilometers per second. A short half-hour later, Lin Chuan broke through the Earth's atmosphere. Without wandering anywhere else, he quickly locked his target and landed on the rooftop of Bulma's round house. At this point, something embarrassing happened. Lin Chuan came back after pursuing Bulma's aura, so when he fell from the sky, he never thought that he had no clothes to cover him. At this time, Bulma was standing alone on the rooftop admiring the beautiful night view while drinking red wine. The two looked at each other. Before Lin Chuan noticed it, Bulma was stunned and dumbfounded. After being stunned for a few seconds, Bulma let out a scream, turned sideways and covered her face with one hand. Why are you running around without clothes? No clothes. Looking down, Lin Chuan finally came to his senses. Lin Chuan, who didn't understand why at first, immediately blushed and turned around in embarrassment. Sorry, something happened on the earth just now, so all the clothes I wore were burned. As he spoke, his eyes once again collided with Bulma's gaze looking through his fingers. The two of them suddenly became awkward. Bulma wanted to find a hole in the ground to burrow down, but she couldn't help but secretly took a look through her fingers. As a result, she was caught by Lin Chuan by chance. How to do? I do not want to live. Bulma's heart was extremely broken. The image of a lady is completely gone. Lady, if you say this, I'm afraid no one will believe it, and no one will think so. Bulma has a free and easy nature, is also innocent, courageous and direct, and extremely intelligent. It can be said that there are many words that can be used to describe Bulma, but she is not the only one who can't match a lady. That, Lin Chuan was about to say something as he watched Bulma's cheeks burning red. The next second, Bulma ran away quickly and left the rooftop regardless of everything. Just leave like this, that's fine. Lin Chuan, who realized that he should quickly go back to the room to wash up and change clothes, stopped thinking and quickly crossed the aisle and returned to his room. In any case, this time the misunderstanding was resolved. The next day, early morning, Lin Chuan was still asleep when he was woken up by Sun Wufan knocking on the door. It should be said that this is also the first time since coming to Earth that I have stayed in bed. It's not that Lin Chuan didn't think of it, but that he was having a sweet dream that all men wanted to have. He couldn't make a choice for a while, so he deliberately slept a little longer and calmed down in his dream. For him, it was just the last step to enjoy the ultimate happiness. As a result, it was accidentally broken by Sun Wuhan. I'm angry, but it's hard to get angry. What does a child know? After getting up and briefly washing up, Lin Chuan put on new clothes and walked downstairs. I have to say that Bulma's arrangements for him were really meticulous. Everything was arranged. At least after arriving here, Lin Chuan never found that he was missing anything. Enter the restaurant. While Chi-Chi was chatting with Bulma, she was busy preparing breakfast with the home robot. Because Lin Chuan and Sun Wufan's demand was relatively large, even if there was a table of breakfast, Chi-Chi still did not stop what she was doing. When Lin Chuan arrived, Bulma and Chi-Chi's exchanges suddenly stopped. Looking at each other, the two of them thought about the awkward moment last night again. I don't know what Bulma was thinking, but after eating a few more bites, she picked up another piece of breakfast to take away. Before leaving, he couldn't help but glance at Lin Chuan, as if to demonstrate. It's just that against the backdrop of her rosy face, she doesn't appear to be serious or angry, but rather adds a bit of charm. Lin Chuan didn't say anything from beginning to end. He watched Bulma leave and his body trembled. The woman whose face he couldn't see clearly in the dream before was superimposed on Bulma's figure. The woman he dreamed about last night was definitely Bulma. After finishing breakfast absent-mindedly, Lin Chuan kept thinking about how to resolve last night's accident. He believed that Bulma would not suspect that he was playing rogue, after all, he had already explained it. However, if a woman really insists on something, she cannot be coaxed easily. Besides, he doesn't know how to coax. In all his past and present lives, he is almost 50. He has been in love, but he is not an expert at it. Especially in the 25 years of this life, I have never had contact with the opposite gender, and Bulma was the first. Uncle Lin Chuan, I've finished eating. Let's go practice early. As Sun Wufan's voice came, Lin Chuan changed his attention. He nodded. Let's go, starting from today, it's almost time to teach you something new. Really, Sun Wufan was excited. He has already felt the benefits of being strong, and at the same time he has always been eager to learn more and improve himself. The two of them walked out of the restaurant one after another and came to the back garden. In the morning, Lin Chuan would do morning exercises, and Sun Wufan would follow him. Gradually, he got used to exercising every day, and then went to practice Qi in the morning. Gohan, after the first 10 days of training, your strength has now reached a certain level. In terms of accurate numerical values, even if it does not exceed 1000 points, it is already very close. Based on your performance yesterday, I also discovered what you are lacking most now. Although you have learned how to attack and how to fight, you don't have many skills. If you don't know the skills, you can't use them at all. Use all your strength. Now, I will teach you 2 attack skills for close combat, and a means of releasing energy waves. As the words came out of his mouth, Lin Chuan had already seen the strength of Sun Wuhan after a night. The combat power exceeded 950 points and reached 980 points. There is a difference of 20 points in combat power. To be honest, we will definitely be able to break through the 1000 mark today. Breakthrough in battle, for Saiyans. No, in fact, for everyone, it is one of the fastest ways to improve strength. However, the Saiyans are particularly noticeable. Sun Wuhan sparred with him every afternoon and evening, and he could improve his combat power by dozens of points in just 2 hours. Afterwards, the strength will increase by a small amount due to exhaustion of physical strength and recovery after the battle. Otherwise, how could it reach nearly 1000 points in 10 days? Yes, I will study hard, Uncle Lin Chuan. Sun Wufan nodded happily, with a look of expectation on his face. Lin Chuan didn't do any ink and started the operation immediately. The 2 close quarters skills to be taught. One is to use the breath to condense on the fists to form a high-pressure air fist. When attacking from this, a more powerful fist will be released. This move is actually similar to the explosive punch used by Nappa in the original novel. But in comparison, it is definitely different. Nappa's explosive punch was too strong and powerful. It broke Tianjin Fan's arm with one punch, but if his physical strength was not strong enough, it would also cause damage to himself. In particular, his technique consumes a lot of energy, and he will be crushed against someone with slightly stronger strength. For example, Nappa was easily suppressed by Sun Wukong later. Even though his explosive fist was powerful, it not only had no effect, but also caused his own energy to be consumed quickly. Lin Chuan's Qi Hequan is different. As long as the Qi is attached to it, you can control how much Qi is compressed to exert as much power as you want. Finally, if you don't blow it out, your anger can still be contained. This requires great control over Qi. It is difficult for Sun Wuhan, but it is most suitable for him to practice. The second is a method that seems very ordinary but is extraordinary, the afterimage fist. It's like the afterimage fist in the original work, but Lin Chuan's afterimage fist can reach a greater limit, and can even simulate a period of afterimage movements to trick the enemy into fooling him. I remember when I first created this move, I just wanted to have fun fighting against the clones. It was not until later that as his strength improved and he fought with clones, this move became a very practical and common method. The close quarters skills are these 2 moves. Then there is the trick of energy release. In fact, Sun Wuhan has already learned how to condense energy bombs. Although the power is not very good, as long as he practices more frequently in the future and has a better grasp of Qi and energy, he can continue to increase the power. In the end, he created his own moves. Of course, it is currently impossible to create one yourself, so Lin Chuan taught him the secret of condensing Qi and releasing Qi. Finally, the trick was taught to him. Special moves such as Thunder Smash Cannon and Scarlet Penetrating Wave are impossible to teach. Even if he wanted to teach them, the current Sun Wuhan would not be able to learn them, let alone unleash them. The demand is too high, reaching at least 10,000 points of combat power. Therefore, Lin Chuan taught him another trick that was easier to learn, and the learning requirements were much lower. Extremely bright flash. Time flies. Just like that, another week passed quietly. Western capital, located at the very back of the manor, on the open wilderness connecting the Great Plains of Exodus. Lin Chuan was standing on a boulder looking ahead with a serious face. Not far away from him, Sun Wuhan was using all his strength to attack with fists and kicks. After constant training and practice, he has become very proficient in the display and use of skills. Just 7 days, not just the Chihei fist and afterimage fist that Lin Chuan first taught. He also learned all the fighting methods that Lin Chuan taught him in these 7 days. All in all, if Son Gohan were to fight against Raditz when he first arrived on Earth at this moment, he would be able to avoid losing in a short period of time. The most important thing is that at this time, Sun Wuhan's combat power has reached 1395 points. This value only took 20 days. Even though the improvement in this week is not as much as the improvement in the previous 10 days, the increase of 400 points is already quite terrifying. From a 4-year-old child who knew nothing, to the little master he is now. In particular, if he uses all his strength to use the brilliant flash, his combat power can soar to 1,700 points, or even higher. And this is still controllable strength that is not affected by emotions. Lin Chuan could imagine that if Sun Wuhan burst out in anger and then fired a full-strength extremely brilliant flash, it would definitely exceed the 2,800 points value of the original magic flash burst. Such strength, nothing else. It can be said that the Earth in the current era is the strongest. Even the current Z warriors have begun to practice crazily, but how can they become stronger at such an outrageous speed? Even Piccolo and Sun Wukong, their combat power at this time cannot exceed 1,300 points, right? Top of the sky, that is, it has just exceeded 1,000. This is because Piccolo and Sun Wukong endured Raditz's calamity and completely broadened their horizons. This is Lin Chuan's view. Of course, he wouldn't know that Sun Wukong's strength now exceeds 1,500 points. Although he was still running the snake path and had not received training from the North Kaio, he and Raditz's strength had been improved accordingly after experiencing the catastrophe of falling into hell. In addition, after eating in hell, only gods and yamas could eat it. The fruit of longevity. If you eat one of the longevity fruits, you will not be hungry for 100 days, and you can tap your potential and improve your strength to a certain extent. The effect won't be outrageous, but it won't be small either. This is also the key to Sun Wukong's combat power exceeding 1,500 points, and Raditz used this to break through to 2,000 points. There is also Piccolo, whose combat power level is approaching 1,500 points at this time. After the battle with Raditz, his strength broke through the boundaries, and after these 20 days of training, he continued to improve. His thoughts returned, watching Sun Wuhan's moves and trajectory. Very good, but your movements can be more agile. In addition, put aside the distracting thoughts every time you want to divert the attack, and let your body instinctively remember it and actively carry out the next attack. Lin Chuan's voice, the constant sound, also plays a role in correcting Sun Wuhan's mistakes. Yes, Uncle Lin Chuan. Sun Wufan responded emotionally. Seeing that this boy was becoming more serious, Lin Chuan nodded. Before, Lin Chuan would never have thought that he would teach this kid so seriously. But as time went by, and I stayed with Sun Wufan for nearly 20 days, this boy politely called Uncle Lin Chuan at every turn. From the beginning, Lin Chuan felt his ears go numb after hearing it. Later, when I heard it, I took it to heart and truly regarded Sun Wuhan as his disciple. Through subtle changes, Lin Chuan finally understood how Piccolo changed in the original work. Piccolo, the great devil, completely became a good person because of Sun Gohan and became his protector. This shows how terrifying Sun Wuhan's luck is. Unknowingly, even Lin Chuan, a time traveler, was affected. Becoming Sun Wuhan's protector. What a joke. Lin Chuan didn't want to. Guidance is guidance, and teaching cultivation is teaching cultivation. In the past 2 days, Lin Chuan had a new plan. Be prepared to make some changes. He was able to guide Sun Wuhan in his practice, but he had to let Sun Wuhan leave for some other experiences. If you just practice in the current environment, you can indeed continue to become stronger, but without a sense of crisis, no matter how strong you are. If you are unable to stand alone and have no ability to survive, you will not be able to make yourself truly strong. Just when Lin Chuan made a decision and was ready to make new arrangements for Sun Wuhan after he finished his training. At this same time, above the Temple of Heaven, Tianjin Fan, Klin, Jiaozi, Yaki Luobe, and Yamucha are currently practicing sparring. And their sparring partners are not each other, but the god's attendant, Bobo. Faced with the siege of 5 people, Bobo could handle it with ease. It has to be said that his 1030 combat power points are not false. Just dealing with these 5 people with only 23,400 points of combat power is as easy as eating and drinking. These days, several people have long known how powerful Bobo is. But knowing it, the constant setbacks made the 5 people's mentality almost collapse. After all, I had never thought that Bobo had such a powerful fighting ability. Think about the troubled times a few years ago when the big devil Piccolo was in trouble. If Bobo took action, what would happen to them? Fortunately, in this era, the big guy is a little strong who becomes more courageous with every setback, and his desire to become stronger has reached unimaginable heights. So even if I have to be beaten by Bobo several times every day, I can persevere and continue to challenge. Simply put, their goal now is to defeat Pop. Only in this way can we complete the first step of spiritual practice. After all, even Popo, who has 1030 combat power points, can't defeat him, and even Raditz can't compare with him. How can he face a stronger Saiyan? Speaking of which, training with Bobo is actually reflected in the original work in disguise. Although it was not explained in detail, it was because they had completed various trainings in the Temple of Heaven and could not continue to improve their strength in the Temple of Heaven, so several people left one after another to pursue other paths of practice. The battle continued, and it was clearly visible how intense it was. However, one person among the five has been paddling. Who else but Akilo? In this extraordinary period, even dumplings are marching forward bravely to challenge Bobo, wanting to become stronger. Akilob always likes to take advantage of loopholes and hides behind as much as possible, unwilling to contribute. Not only was there no way to join the attacking camp, it actually dragged down the other four. Naturally, this isn't the first time this has happened, so others are already used to it. For them, if God hadn't called Akilob here, they would have been kicked out of the team out of patience. November is here, I beg for monthly votes, recommendation votes, and rewards. The fan group has been established. Anyone who is interested can enter the group chat to discuss the plot together. The battle was fierce. Tianjin fan cooperates with Klin to attack, Yamcha supports from the side, and Dumpling looks for opportunities in the gaps. Even if his strength far exceeds that of a few people, Bobo can no longer crush a few people like he did at the beginning. Even though the difference in strength was huge, it was impossible for him to actually injure a few people. For Tianjin rice, Keelan, Yamuti, dumplings. From the beginning, they couldn't even resist Bobo's moves, but gradually, their cooperation became more and more tacit, and the strength they could exert became stronger and stronger. Make progress in battle and breakthrough in battle. Compared with when they first came to the Tianjin temple to practice, they have naturally improved a lot. Of course, only they know about this progress, and they are extremely happy about it, at least they are constantly getting stronger. They don't know that with their current strength, they are still much inferior to others. It should be noted that Piccolo, Sun Wukong and the others have already exceeded 1000, and even Sun Wuhan has 1395 combat power points, but they are still struggling with hundreds of combat power points. The other side, located on the edge of the Celestial Temple platform. Piccolo, the god of heaven, is leaning on his unique staff and using the authority of the earth god to look at the lower world. These days, in addition to guiding this group of people to practice, he also goes to see what is happening in the lower world from time to time. The most important thing is to check on Lin Chuan occasionally. After all, this is an unstable factor. Even if it does not cause harm to the earth now, there is no guarantee of what will happen in the future. It's okay not to look at it, but once he looks at it, he will be shocked and confused every time. Because the child he once thought was a burden turned into a peerless master in Lin Chuan's hands. I didn't expect that Wukong's child would have such a terrifying talent. If I had known this, I should have kept him by my side and nurtured him before Wukong entrusted him with his care. My heart is simple and kind, and my talent is so outstanding. In the future, you may be able to inherit my throne and become the new god of the earth. Wukong himself is unwilling. I am still worried about the future of the earth. I didn't expect him to bring me such a big surprise. In his thoughts, God Piccolo seemed to have made some decision. How could he believe such a thing if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes? The 4-year-old child exploded with such terrifying strength. This also made him, an old god, feel that he had been eliminated by the times. Turning around and looking at Klin and the others who were still fighting behind him, the god couldn't help but sigh. There is no harm if there is no comparison. The people he originally had high hopes for were all martial arts masters with extraordinary talents. But now, it seems that he has been eliminated, and can only barely catch up. Alas, I don't know if they alone will be able to deal with those two Saiyans in a year's time. It's best not to rely on that Lin Chuan. His variables are too weird. I wonder if Goku and Raditz have arrived at the Kaio at this time. God Piccolo kept sighing in his heart. His eyes shifted and he looked to the other side in the distance. Located in the center of the southern continent of the Earth, in a dead desert area. In order to cope with the two super powerful Saiyans who will arrive in a year's time, Piccolo is training like crazy. He is using his own way to prove himself, and he is also using his own methods to make himself stronger. Indeed, it works extremely well. In just 20 days, Piccolo's strength increased by leaps and bounds. He even had the confidence to face Raditz alone. But despite this, he was still not satisfied. With a roar, Piccolo's whole body ignited with white flames. A powerful and heavy punch struck a giant rock mountain in front of him. Boom! Single quote. In just an instant, the huge rock mountain 100 meters high shattered and collapsed under Piccolo's devastating punch. Debris scattered all over the sky and fell to the ground, showing the horror. This punch contains Piccolo's extremely powerful energy. It seems that it only destroyed this rock mountain. In fact, if this punch hits the ground, it can directly shatter the land under your feet. If the combat power is only faced by hundreds of beings, the body will definitely be pierced by this punch. This is Piccolo with 1450 combat power points. Not enough. It's far from enough. With this level of combat power, it can only be compared to that Raditz. It's simply not enough to deal with the two Saiyans who will come in a year. Piccolo knows that his strength is far from reaching the standard. In order to gain more powerful combat power, he must change his training methods. 1 year is too short. Taking a deep breath, Piccolo jumped and reached the top of another rock mountain. Sitting cross-legged with legs, holding his breath and concentrating, he entered into meditation. Physical exertion and energy consumption are processes that must be experienced every time one achieves certain results in cultivation. Recover after consumption and seek breakthroughs at the peak to step into a higher realm. Is Piccolo's potential talent poor? Of course it's impossible. Even if Piccolo inherited everything from Piccolo I, this Piccolo is not Piccolo I. It should be noted that he is only 8 years old. Without Sun Wuhan's intervention and delay, his cultivation could go more smoothly without any hindrance. In the process of cultivation, I was single-minded and had nothing to worry about, so I was able to soar my combat power to this point so quickly. It should be said that the current Piccolo has not changed, and is very different from the original work. He is still the unruly demon King Piccolo who only pursues power and self. Of course, his previous goal was just to surpass Sun Wukong and conquer the world. Now, he has surpassed all Saiyans, including Son Goku who cannot lose. Conquering the world or something like that is too small in his eyes now. The universe is a platform, what is an earth? Western capital. Above the wilderness, Sun Wuhan finally finished his final training. He was so tired that he lay down directly on the ground, panting heavily. These days, he gets so tired every day. Then rest, eat, recover, and then continue practicing until night. Perhaps it was caused by Lin Chuan's intentional or unintentional stimulation, which made the little guy feel that he was far from enough, so he became more and more motivated. After resting for more than 10 minutes, Lin Chuan didn't bother him. Let him catch his breath and then say, "Gohan, your practice has reached a certain bottleneck these days. If you want to break through, you may need to undergo some other training." After the words fell, Sun Wuhan raised his head. He thought Lin Chuan was going to teach him something new, and he was extremely excited. He knows that he has become stronger. Coupled with this period of time together, Lin Chuan is the most respected elder in his heart. After you fully recover, I will take you to meet someone. In the next period of time, I will follow him to practice. In other words, you have to learn to survive on your own. Afternoon, Lin Chuan took Sun Wufan to finish lunch, and then said goodbye to Chi-Chi. The two of them left Exedu using the Wukong technique, one after the other. Although Chi-Chi was worried that her son was going to be taken away to practice with others, her son was so serious and wanted to be independent. There was no other way for Chi-Chi to accept it. In the past, it would have been good if Chi-Chi could agree to Sun Wuhan's cultivation. How could she agree to Sun Wuhan leaving her side? In Chi-Chi's mind, Sun Wuhan has always been a child. In the original work, it was not until Sun Wuhan found Bidili that she gradually realized that her son had grown up. It can be said that a lot has happened during this time, and Chi-Chi is slowly changing. In fact, she can also be considerate, she can also understand the general situation and understand the situation. Flying all the way through the air, aiming for the southern continent. Although the speed is not fast, it is not slow either. Lin Chuan could see what was on Sun Wufan's mind, so he could only comfort him and look away. Young eagles have to leave the protection of their parents to embrace the world, let alone humans. He is indeed still young for Earthlings, but for Saiyans, 4 years old is enough to invade the planet. For example, his father was sent to Earth, and his combat power was only 2. Southern continent, on top of a huge mountain in the middle of the desert. Piccolo, who was meditating calmly, suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up suddenly and looked into the distance with a shocked expression. There was a special instinctive premonition that made him realize that he was being targeted. Who is it? That Saiyan Lin Chuan. There is still a breath of energy, so familiar, Sun Wukong. Raditz. No, it's not them. Piccolo murmured, tense for a moment. It's not a good sign to suddenly come to your door at this time. What happened 20 days ago was still fresh in his memory. The feeling of being completely suppressed and being shocked to the point of being unable to move will never be forgotten in this life. Looking towards the sky, Piccolo frowned and his eyes were solemn. My breathing almost stopped. He tried his best to maintain his energy and control his power, and he could explode with power beyond the limit in an instant. Until he clearly saw the 2 figures appearing on the horizon, Piccolo's originally serious expression was filled with shock. He saw the person besides Lin Chuan. Son of Sun Wukong. Son Gohan. How is that possible? This breath. Dad, are you kidding me? Piccolo couldn't believe it. Although, when fighting Raditz, Sun Wuhan exploded with unimaginable potential and power, which also shocked him. But how long has it been? Can you control that power in just 20 days? After practicing hard for so long, Piccolo suddenly felt a palpitation in his heart, making him feel that he was worse than a child now. Piccolo didn't realize that in terms of age, he was only 4 years older than Son Gohan. It can only be said that the fighting Namekians will mature earlier, and Piccolo inherited everything from the past Piccolo I, so he never regarded himself as a child. Here we are. Seeing Piccolo, Lin Chuan smiled slightly and said something to Sun Wuhan beside him. Hearing this, Sun Wuhan focused his attention and saw the unique figure on the top of the wasteland mountain. That person is Uncle Piccolo who came to save me with my father. Only then did Sun Wuhan know who Lin Chuan was going to hand him over to. When he heard Sun Wuhan's name, Lin Chuan was slightly surprised. Gohan, how did you know that his name is Piccolo? Because at that time I heard him call himself the great demon King Piccolo, and my father and mother told me many things in the past. My father also said that Piccolo is his most important opponent. Sun Wuhan's answer made Lin Chuan nodded. The most important opponent. Indeed, before the chapter on androids, Piccolo was Sun Wukong's most valued opponent. But since the beginning of the android chapter, Piccolo has slowly taken a back seat due to the gap in strength. Since then, the person most valued by Sun Wukong has also become Vegeta. I see. Let's go down first, and you will have to practice with him in the future. Without delving into other aspects of the problem, Lin Chuan said it, and fell from the sky first. Sun Wuhan followed closely behind without saying a word. He is still timid, and even if he becomes stronger, he will still be frightened by Piccolo's appearance. What's more, according to his mother, Piccolo is a super devil and a big bad guy who wants to destroy the world. Lin Chuan looked at Piccolo with a smile on his face. Sun Wuhan stood beside him because of his restraint, and just stared blankly. What's the matter with you coming to me? Piccolo was the first to speak. Hearing this, Lin Chuan did not hesitate and replied simply, don't be so nervous, I'll give you an opponent. Opponent? Piccolo's surprised gaze shifted to Sun Wuhan. There are only 3 of them here, and Lin Chuan is here to give him an opponent. Doesn't this mean the kid Sun Wuhan? Who is Piccolo? His IQ has always been online. What, you don't think it's appropriate? Lin Chuan smiled and tested Piccolo's true thoughts. Do you think it's appropriate? Piccolo asked slightly angrily after being hit on a sore point. Let Sun Wuhan, the son of Sun Wukong, be his opponent. What a joke. He is the great demon King Piccolo. I think it's quite suitable. Don't underestimate Gohan. His current strength is not much weaker than yours. You should be at the critical moment of breakthrough in strength now, right? Don't you want to have a good fight? Lin Chuan saw that after learning about Piccolo's current situation, he said. Piccolo was stunned. He made a sound in the next second and said in turn, I can understand that you are demonstrating to me. Or are you deliberately coming to me to find a sense of presence? As soon as the words changed, Piccolo joked, if you can accompany me to fight, then I will be happy to accompany you. You want me to fight with you? Are you sure? Hearing this, Lin Chuan admired Piccolo's courage. However, Piccolo during this period did have a character that would get stronger when strong and would never admit defeat. Whether it was when facing Vegeta and Nappa, or later facing Frieza who finally transformed. Why not? You are indeed very strong, but for me, fighting with you allows me to see a broader field. Piccolo knew that he could not be his opponent, but he still said calmly. At this time, communication is not difficult, so Piccolo is not against Lin Chuan. Although he would be wary of Lin Chuan, he was sure that the other party was not looking for trouble, so there was no need to talk more. After listening to Piccolo's words, Lin Chuan nodded. Although it was a request to be tortured, since it was what he wanted, Lin Chuan didn't mind letting him feel his power. You want to fight me just because you want to know what level of strength I have reached. Therefore, there is no need to fight or anything like that. I can just show it to you. However, after the presentation, I hope that you can take Gohan to practice with him in the future. Or, in other words, you can give him some guidance on his future training path and train him better. I believe that with your eyesight, soon you can see what he lacks. November is here, I beg for monthly votes, recommendation votes, and rewards. The fan group has been established. Anyone who is interested can enter the group chat to discuss the plot together. In the blink of an eye, 5 minutes later. After Lin Chuan completely withdrew his aura pressure, Piccolo's face was already covered with cold sweat. He was completely shocked. Piccolo wanted to see his strength, so Lin Chuan showed how strong he was with 10,000 points of combat power. 10,000 combat power. For Lin Chuan now, it is not worth mentioning at all. After all, Lin Chuan's combat power has reached as high as 1,794,870 points just because of the increase in system combat power in this week in his own training results. It is only a little over 200,000 points away from 2 million points of combat power. Of course, now that he is strong enough, it feels like nothing, but to him before, 10,000 combat power was still no small matter. Especially for the current warriors on Earth, this is undoubtedly an unimaginably powerful force. Not only Piccolo, but also Sun Wuhan beside him was very frightened. Although Sun Wuhan has been staying with Lin Chuan, he has also been receiving guidance from Lin Chuan. But in fact, he had never really felt such a powerful aura from Lin Chuan. Is this your real strength? Or is it just something you used casually? Piccolo asked seriously after regaining his breath. In the past few minutes, he had truly realized his weakness. This was even more shocking than the last time Lin Chuan crushed his demonic light-killing cannon with his bare hands, leaving him unable to even resist. You can understand that this is all I have. Of course, you can also think that I still have some reservations. I feel the intensity of over 10,000 combat power. When your strength reaches this level, you will understand more. Lin Chuan did not give an accurate answer, but smiled. Why do you say it so clearly? Appropriate stimulation is good. But if you overexpose your strength to crush the opponent, even someone like Piccolo will probably feel powerless and become confused and take the wrong path. Looking at Lin Chuan, Piccolo felt heavy. But he quickly regained his composure. As he let out a long sigh, the atmosphere surrounding him also changed. It seemed that due to the oppression of Lin Chuan's momentum, his strength had a breakthrough. By using pressure to break through, I also felt a stronger force, so I refused to admit defeat and cross the barrier that I could not cross before. 1,700 combat power points. Simply feeling Lin Chuan's anger, and staying under Lin Chuan's suppression for less than 5 minutes, his combat power increased by 250 points. It seems normal, isn't it, just 250 combat power points? But it's actually quite outrageous. You must know that Piccolo's current overall combat power is only more than 1,000 points, and suddenly increased by 250 points. This is a small leap in the realm. Before, he might not have been able to defeat Raditz, who had 1,500 combat points. At most, he would be tied. But now, he is sure to win easily. Congratulations, after your strength breakthrough, your future cultivation will be smoother. Lin Chuan praised. Although these words were kind words, they sounded harsh to Piccolo's ears. Forget it, my meager strength is less than 1/10 of yours. But it won't take long before I can catch up with you, or even surpass you. Don't even think that I will thank you for my breakthrough in strength. I am the great demon King Piccolo. Piccolo's tone was still so strong. Lin Chuan couldn't help but nod. Stay true to yourself, this guy is indeed quite aloof. The fact that you can break through under my pressure is your great talent. I don't need your thanks either. I just need you to guide Gohan well in the next period of time. I will come to pick him up soon. After all, the spaceship is already being built and it won't take long to complete. If you want to then, you can go to your hometown, planet Namek, with us. After leaving a few words, Lin Chuan looked at Sun Wuhan beside him and nodded. Without waiting for Sun Wuhan to speak, he violently performed the Wukong technique and left without looking back. Watching Lin Chuan go away, Vic felt mixed. It wasn't until a long time passed that he looked at Sun Wuhan because of a trembling sound. Without Lin Chuan here, without support, facing Piccolo alone, Sun Wuhan was frightened by his cold face. It has to be said that for ordinary people on Earth, the appearance of Namekians is the standard for monsters. This is especially reflected in some plots in the future, when the people on Earth directly identify Piccolo as a monster. In the final analysis, it is also because Piccolo has an aura of calmness and self-power. No strangers are allowed in. Anyone who is not a monster will definitely be regarded as a monster. Beings like Fat Majin Buu would not be considered monsters. They have the added bonus of being cute, full of fun, lively and free-spirited. HMPH, son of Sun Wukong, can't you even stand firm in front of me? Are you the only one who wants to be my opponent? Ridiculous, Piccolo criticized. One sentence frightened Sun Wufan and made him tremble even more. Seeing this, Piccolo immediately understood what Lin Chuan had said before, he would soon discover this kid's flaws. He finally understood why Lin Chuan sent Sun Wufan here instead of sending it to others for guidance. Purely just using his terror to experience Sun Wufan. How can such a timid character be put to great use? It was like this when facing him. When facing the enemy in the future, wouldn't it be that he didn't even dare to move and wished he could faint from fear? Use things like going to planet Namek to hint to me and let me guide this little devil properly. You have a really good plan. But it doesn't matter, it's just to exercise your courage. There is indeed a powerful force in this kid's body. Humph, I just don't know what you think, Sun Wukong, that you are willing to let your son practice with your mortal enemy. Piccolo kept thinking in his mind, and his expression became more and more evil as he thought about it. He didn't know that Sun Wukong had gone to the underworld to find the King of Realms to practice. How could he know that Lin Chuan would take Sun Wufan to find him? Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't want to be your opponent. Sun Wuhan's response was weak. It can be seen that there are tears sliding down the eyes. This prototype is directly back to the prototype. It is equivalent to Lin Chuan's 20 days, indeed improving his strength, and his combat power is not bad. But having never experienced a severe beating, Sun Wuhan immediately withered away. TCH, you're such a useless brat. You have so much power, but you're such a waste. Piccolo muttered disdainfully. The next second, he had an idea and raised his hand directly. Since that guy handed you over to me, then if I don't do anything, I am indeed unqualified. Since you are so afraid of me, then just go and do the wasteland yourself. Survive. When you overcome your cowardly character and know that you must be brave to support yourself, you can be my opponent again. Hidden in the dark, Lin Chuan was watching what Piccolo did to Sun Wuhan. It seemed like he left directly, but actually he came back halfway. With the help of perfect control of one's own breath, one can hide oneself without being discovered. It wasn't until he was sure that Piccolo would treat Sun Wuhan as he did in the original work that Lin Chuan couldn't help but feel disappointed for a while, and then he really left. I originally thought that after he left, Piccolo would put down his face and force Sun Wuhan to take action against him, in order to satisfy his desire to fight. In the end, Piccolo really held back. Not only did he not act too hastily, but he began to train her in a free-ranging style. I'm afraid it was another improvement in strength that made Piccolo care about Son Gohan's strength, but he didn't show it immediately. Sun Wuhan's performance was within Lin Chuan's expectations. This little guy has many thoughts in his head that are difficult for ordinary people to understand. Although he is timid and cowardly, he will be scared to the point of facing Piccolo. But when facing clear challenges in the future, he will also show his independent bravery. Generally speaking, he is much more mature than the original work, and he has withstood Lin Chuan's 20 days of training. Return to Exedu. Before Lin Chuan landed, he saw Chi-Chi standing on the rooftop looking into the distance with a worried look on her face. Seeing Lin Chuan coming back, Chi-Chi quickly asked about the situation. In order to reassure her, Lin Chuan could only tell her a few words and promised to pick up her son after the spaceship was completed. As for leaving it to Piccolo, the big devil, it was impossible for Lin Chuan to say. If she said it out, according to Chi-Chi's character, she wouldn't be furious. Even if it is for the sake of their own children, which mother would be willing to let her children follow a big devil? All in all, Lin Chuan could only do some things to cover up the truth. Even in order to better train Sun Wufan, he would often instill some concepts in her ears intentionally or unintentionally, indirectly brainwashing her. Sun Wufan is not an ordinary child, her son is a genius. After saying goodbye to Chi-Chi, Lin Chuan arrived at Bulma's space test cabin as quickly as possible. According to Bulma, this test cabin was set up a few years ago to study space satellites and space storage cabins. Many years ago, the Universal Capsule Company got involved in the space field in order to mine rare space ores. However, after getting involved in the extraterrestrial realm, it did not rush to expand outwards, but instead wandered in the near-Earth space. After all, according to Earth's previous technology, even if a spaceship was built, engines and energy would be big problems. It can be said that the Frieza Army spaceship brought by Lin Chuan helped Bulma and Brive solve many big troubles that they could not overcome before. Let's not talk about the spaceship for now. This place has now been transformed by Bulma into a gravity equipment experimental site. Because it is a sealed space capsule space and has oxygen supply facilities, it only needs to load the gravity equipment and make slight modifications before it can be used. This is also the reason why Lin Chuan is anxious to see off Sun Wufan today. Bulma gave him the exact answer yesterday. In order to test the gravity device, he will need to cooperate every day to complete the data collection for the next period of time. This time is not an hour or two, but a long time. It will take at least several days of continuous operation to draw a conclusion. In fact, you are too worried about equipment problems, which makes you get out of hand. For Bulma, it means that this is equipment installed on the spaceship. What if something goes wrong? Therefore, in order to eliminate the hidden danger of instability, all possibilities must be nipped in the cradle. It can't be perfect, but at least we have to make sure that 99.99% of the time there won't be any accidents. Step inside the massive interior. What catches the eye is an indoor activity venue that is as large as 6 basketball courts. Since all irrelevant objects have been dismantled and moved away, the place looks extremely empty. For Lin Chuan, it is the best indoor training place. There is enough space. If the gravity equipment can meet the standards, then he can carry out gravity training here. You're here. Noticing Lin Chuan's arrival, Bulma turned around and said while holding the record book in one hand. Yeah. After hearing this, Lin Chuan stepped forward and arrived in front of the gravity console. Before he could speak, Bulma took the initiative and said, I thought you were joking, but I didn't expect you really sent Gohan away. Are you really relieved? That's the great demon King Piccolo. We on Earth haven't killed anyone before. The big devil who blinks. Bulma still doesn't trust Piccolo. This is indeed the case in this era. Piccolo was not completely accepted by everyone until after Frieza's chapter. You're worrying too much. Although that guy is very aloof and looks evil on the surface, he's actually not that bad. Leaving Gohan to him is not only not a bad thing, but a great good thing. I believe that Kid Gohan will transform soon. After the words fell, Lin Chuan simply reassured Bulma. Okay, I can't say anything, let alone stop you. Bulma said, then thought of something again, and said, did Chi-Chi ask you? I suggest you don't tell her the truth, otherwise she won't be able to bear it. I told her before I came here. I didn't tell her who she was. You'd better be careful and don't let it slip. Lin Chuan nodded and said. The two of them communicated like this for a long time. Until Bulma completed the final steps and closed the record book. It's finally completed, and we can start testing next. I will go to the control room above to monitor, and more importantly, I will record and compare the data. You remember, although the limit value of the current gravity equipment is still uncertain, the current test is only 100 times gravity. Following Bulma's words, Lin Chuan nodded. Don't worry, I won't mess around. After hearing this, Bulma stopped saying anything and started to move quickly. Until she reached the other end of the door, walked out of the steel door of the isolation room, and then took the elevator to the control room above. We can start now. Last time it was 50 times the limit. This time we will start from 50 times. You should be fine, right? Bulma's voice came through the radio. Of course, no problem, then I'll start. His eyes changed slightly. Lin Chuan stepped forward and turned on the gravity equipment. Just like the last version 1.0 console, it is simple and easy to operate. Wang, single quote. There was a muffled sound. As gravity turned on, the surrounding space quickly turned dark red, and the number on the central control room directly reached 50 G. This represents 50 times the gravity of Earth. Brothers, please beg for monthly votes, recommendation votes, and rewards. The fan group has been established. Anyone who is interested can enter the group chat to discuss the plot together. With the activation of gravity, the pressure of 50 times the gravity of the Earth made Lin Chuan slightly labored for a moment. Yes, just for a moment. After that, I got used to it directly. With his strength, how could he be suppressed by a mere 50 times gravity? But, a moment of supercharging does have some effect. After all, the first time it was doubled and increased step by step. Next, should I drive it directly to 100 times? Or should I slowly increase the multiple according to the method last time? Lin Chuan raised his head and looked at Bulma on the console above. Bulma was not as shocked as the first time. I already knew that Lin Chuan could bear it without being affected, but this was still the case for the second time. Isn't it normal? However, Bulma suddenly had a weird idea. Recalling what Lin Chuan said last time, 100 times gravity was nothing, but she wanted to see if Lin Chuan would be embarrassed when faced with a direct increase of 100 times gravity. Of course it's a direct increase. The test is originally 100 times gravity, but you won't be able to bear the sudden increase, right? The words were obviously ridiculing. Lin Chuan paused, then laughed the next second. He understood what Bulma meant. Okay, in that case, let's increase it to 100 times. With a chuckle, Lin Chuan directly pressed the plus button and held it down. Buzz buzz. Single quote. The surrounding environment became scarier and scarlet, and the oppression became stronger and stronger. The gravity number on the control device is rising rapidly. 55 G. 0.60 G. 0.70 G. 0.80 G. 0.90 G. After long pressing to reach a gravity of more than 90 G, Lin Chuan released the long press, pressed several times in succession, and finally controlled the gravity to 100 G. It is no longer as easy to adapt as before. But there was a slight sense of difficulty. 100 times gravity is not bad at all. However, if that's all, it's nothing. He secretly thought in his heart that Lin Chuan could stabilize his body without even needing the assistance of Qi. He could fully accept the pressure of gravity with his own strength and body strength. Seeing this, Bulma stopped laughing. She originally wanted to see Lin Chuan make a fool of herself, but in the end, nothing happened. This is not 50 times the gravity of the Earth, this is 100 times. Completely two concepts. As a manufacturer, Bulma fully understands the difference between tens of times gravity and hundreds of times gravity. The pressure is constantly multiplying, rather than just multiplying 50 to 100 by 2. You Saiyans are truly monsters, with 100 times gravity. According to my initial calculations, it would take at least 100,000 points of combat power to bear it, and it should only be barely bearable. Bulma muttered. She had measured Lin Chuan's strength more than once with a detector, and the highest data available was when Lin Chuan took the initiative to release it, with a combat power of over 30,000 points. Hearing Bulma's sigh, Lin Chuan finally came back to his senses, raised his head, and said, "My combat power index has already exceeded 100,000 points, so as I said last time, it will take at least a few hundred. Only twice the gravity can bring huge pressure to me." As the words came out, Lin Chuan continued to feel the substantial effect of 100 times gravity on him. The long-lost feeling of exertion made my body instinctively feel something. Since it needs to be maintained for a long time, I can't waste this time. Just in time, I will just practice here. As if telling Bulma, Lin Chuan no longer cared about it and started moving directly. This scene would be extremely shocking to outsiders. Because tolerating is to bear, but to move is another concept. Not to mention practicing. You really don't want your life, forget it. Anyway, you won't listen to anything I say, so it's up to you. If you can't bear it, remember to speak. I will block the terminal operation here. Bulma rolled her eyes. Lin Chuan knew where her limits were, so she worried about it for nothing. Time passed by like this minute by minute. Lin Chuan practiced in the huge space, enjoying the pressure brought by 100 times gravity to make himself stronger. Not to mention how much the combat power is improved. What is the effect? Lin Chuan can be sure that even if he is now practicing here at 100 times gravity for a long time, his strength will increase rapidly. And the training is not only about the level of combat power, but also the training of one's own strength. In the blink of an eye, it was already evening outside. It was here that Bulma, who was at the control room console, suddenly heard the sound of the communicator. He picked it up and looked at it. After confirming that it was his father, he answered the phone. After some exchanges, Bulma knew what was going on. There were some minor flaws in the manufacturing of the spacecraft over there, and she needed to go over and work out solutions together. After responding, Bulma looked at the time and saw that 2 or 3 hours had passed. Looking at Lin Chuan, who had been practicing on his own, Bulma couldn't help but think of the word monster again. It's been so long and I still don't feel tired at all. Although those exercises are simple movements, including push-ups, they last for several hours under 100 times gravity. If she hadn't known that times had changed, she would have suspected that she was dreaming. Lin Chuan, there are some minor problems with the research on the spaceship. I need to go there. We have almost recorded the data here today. Do you need a break? Bulma asked. Hearing the sound, Lin Chuan, who was practicing, looked up and wondered where he was. After thinking about it, he said casually, "If something happens over there, just go and help. It's not easy to sweat for once. I can't miss this opportunity." After receiving Lin Chuan's reply, Bulma twitched her lips. "Then you can continue to practice here. I will come over to record the data later." With Bulma leaving, Lin Chuan continued his first gravity training even harder. The longer Lin Chuan exercised his body under 100 times gravity, the more he felt like a fire was burning in his chest, and a steady stream of power emerged from his body. He finally understood why gravity training was called a training cheating device. For them Saiyans, it is really the best way to practice under pressure. Under the extreme gravity environment, they can quickly squeeze out all the power in their bodies and force out their potential abilities, making their strength increase by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. Bulma is gone. How about I carry her on my back to try a force of over 100 times gravity? With this idea in his mind, Lin Chuan stood up directly and walked to the control desk. It's said to be a 100-fold test, but to put it bluntly, wouldn't a higher fold test be better? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.